Chapter 1924. The Demon King's last sentence was quite domineering. She had almost singled out all the major forces. She wanted to fight against 36 forces on her own. Such boldness could be said to be able to swallow the clouds and seas, a woman surpassing a man. What surprised many people at the second heaven was that all the other forces remained silent and gave no response. Some of them were permanently neutral. They would not start a war just because of one word from the Demon King. For example, the Hall of Mystical Machine, the force that published the Celestial God List, never got involved in any disputes at the second heaven. But if someone attacked them, the Hall of Mystical Machine would fight back until one party died. The rest of the forces were strangely silent. It was unknown whether they were secretly plotting something or if they were afraid of the great Demon King's shocking battle prowess, so they didn't dare to provoke him. The Demon King led the army to another island. In a couple of days, the main force of the Omen Island arrived. The Demon King only had a few thousand with her. She could not split up and loot, which was a good thing for the others. The residents of the Wiyuan Island were just glad that the Demon King's army had left. Unexpectedly, the bandits came at once. The bandits did not care about many things. Like a swarm of locusts, they would take all the treasures and materials. Anyone who dared to fight back would be killed. If the bandits handed over the treasures, they would not kill anyone. Peace was restored at the Omen Island. Many people felt it was a shame that they didn't go with the army. Now, everyone had become rich. Every day, the people on the island were looking forward to new information and reports of victory. Luli started closed-door cultivation after the Demon King conquered the half-storage island. Since the Demon King was safe and sound, and there was no news about Fairy Tian Yun and Patriarch Shun, Luli didn't have to worry. He went back to cultivation to study the unfettered steps. This time, he cultivated for 5 months. 5 months later, he came out and asked about the situation. The Demon King was still attacking the islands with her army. 4 islands had been destroyed, and she was on her way to the 5th one. Even though the 8 forces were all here, there was still a long distance between them. If there were only 1 or 2 people, it would be fine. But with so many people, they would have to fly over without using powerful divine glyphs. This time, Luli was sure that Fairy Tian Yun and Patriarch Shun were fine. Of the other patriarchs of the Heavenly Clouds Island, only 1 died, and 4 commanders died. All right, Luli suddenly remembered something. He asked Patriarch Lu, "Patriarch Lu, have you seen Lady E? Did she follow the army to battle?" Luli did not see Lady E after he returned to Mount Heaven Cloud. Logically speaking, Sky Cloud Mountain had been in such turmoil recently. If Miss E had not gone to war, she would have shown herself long ago. They didn't go to battle. Elder Lu said with certainty, she is not among the experts who went to battle. It seems like she went to some treasure ground to cultivate in seclusion. Is she trying to break through to the 3rd tribulation heavenly god realm? Seclusion? Luli had some doubts. He asked out of curiosity, "Patriarch Lu, I have a question. What is the identity of Lady E?" This, Elder Lu frowned. After a moment of silence, he shook his head and said, "I don't know. This Miss E seems to have appeared out of nowhere. She was very talented and was well liked by the fairies. And she was often elusive, appearing and disappearing again. However, his talent is really abnormal. At such a young age, he's already about to break through to the 3rd tribulation heavenly god realm." Luli was surprised. He had some ideas. Was this Lady E on the side of the Demon King? Was she the daughter of the Demon King? Was she here to have fun, so she disappeared and reappeared? Luli thought of something else. He asked another question. "Patriarch Lu, do you know the surnames of the Demon King and the fairy?" "Well, I don't know." Commander Lu shook his head and said, "Nobody knows the name of the Demon King. As a matter of fact, nobody has seen her in person, let alone her background. The Demon King seemed to have appeared out of nowhere." She rose up quickly. "She has been wearing a mask. Not even the ones closest to her have seen her in person. It's the same with the fairy. I don't think Patriarch Chen has ever seen her." "What?" Luli was even more surprised. Were the Demon King and Fairy Tianyun hiding some big secrets? Why didn't they show their faces? Why did anyone know about their background? Was their race a taboo race from ancient times? Would they be cursed once they were exposed? Did Lady E come out of nowhere as well? Luli speculated that she might be from the Demon King's race. Nobody has seen the Demon King in person, but it is said that any woman in the world would feel ashamed when they see her. So, it must be a rumor. Luli smiled to himself. The more mysterious someone was, the more curious they would be. Those who wore masks all the time were either hiding their identity, or they were beauties, or too ugly to show their faces. Something is not right. Another question came to Li's mind. He asked, Patriarch Lu, didn't you say that the Demon King came out of nowhere? Nobody knows about her background. Then how come she has people? Could it be that she married someone else and had a bunch of offspring? No. Patriarch Lu thought about it for a while. This time, he sent a message to Li. The Demon King is not married. I have never heard of her having an affair with a man. She doesn't have any children. These people came out of nowhere. Nobody knows where they came from. Well, the Demon King doesn't like people talking about her family. You shouldn't ask about it. Okay, thank you, Patriarch Lu. Li cupped his fists and asked no more questions. The Demon King was full of mysteries. It was impossible to get to the bottom of them. He had to get some information from Lady Yi later. Li chatted with Patriarch Lu for a bit and then left for his castle. While he was walking, his footsteps suddenly became unreal. He seemed to be changing his direction constantly. Sometimes he seemed to be fast, and sometimes he seemed to be very slow. He would flash over, and the next second, he would go back to where he was, and then move back for thousands of feet in the next second. It was strange. That was right. After 5 months of cultivation, Li had barely grasped the beginner level of the carefree steps. He could use it preliminarily. This unfettered footwork was extremely mystical, and it contained the true meaning of space, time, and wind. Not only was one's speed extremely fast, but it could also shuttle through space, speeding up the flow of time. One's body flashed without any signs or traces, and it could be said to be extremely mystical. Well, if everything goes well, I should be able to master it in a year at most. Li went back to his castle like a ghost. His eyes were filled with passion. As long as he could master the carefree steps, he could go anywhere in the world. By then, he could leave the Omen Island and search for the marrow to strengthen his body. With his speed and defense improved, he wouldn't be afraid of the Hall of Black Flame anymore. He could go back to the divinity. Will the old man make his move? If the old man killed the Grand Master of the Hall of Black Flame, the Hall of Black Flame would be without a leader. The other forces would covet the Hall of Black Flame and even attack it. The Hall of Black Flame would be overwhelmed, and Li would be safe. The divinity, wait for me. I will be back soon. Li took a deep breath to calm himself down. He entered the dreamland and continued to cultivate. Chapter 1925. The Great Demon King's campaign continued. Islands fell one after another. Wherever the Great Demon King's blade pointed, cities either surrendered or were destroyed. There was no way to stop him. On the other side, Boundless Island and Star Dream Island fought a few battles with the other two powers. Both sides were evenly matched, and both sides suffered casualties. The people from the two powers gathered on Red Tears Island, defending it with their lives. This island had a powerful divine inscription training ground. It was very difficult to break through it. After the Great Demon King destroyed the 6 powers, he led his army to Red Tears Island. The two powers on the other side instantly became nervous. They constantly asked for help from the other powers, and at the same time, urgently invited a divine inscription grandmaster to set up more divine inscriptions. The other powers didn't make a move. Before the Great Demon King showed any signs of unifying the second heavenly layer, no one wanted to stick their heads out. No one had the confidence to stop the Great Demon King. The Great Demon King fought against 6 experts at the peak of the third tribulation, all of whom were at the second heavenly layer. He easily killed 5 of them. The Great Demon King's ferocious might shocked everyone. Without absolute confidence, who would dare to gamble with their lives and the survival of their clans? The two powers invited a famous divine inscription grandmaster. This divine inscription grandmaster could set up several powerful divine inscription training grounds. He was very famous in the entire second heavenly layer. The two great forces had paid a huge price to invite him over and use him to block the great demon king. The second heavenly layer was vast, but there were only so many heavenly islands. The two powers couldn't abandon their own territories and bring their clans and subordinates to the ends of the world. Without the heavenly islands, they were like duckweed without roots. The two powers would be destroyed sooner or later. Half a month later, the great demon king arrived at Red Tears Island with a few thousand people. The morale of the armies from Boundless Island and Star Dream Island was greatly boosted. Originally, the Heavenly Devil Island was the leader of the three islands. The great demon king was the leader of the three islands. Now he had become the absolute spiritual leader. The great demon king let the army rest for a day, then led the three armies to attack Red Tears Island. The divine inscription training ground of Red Tears Island was indeed very strong. The divine inscriptions set up by the divine inscription grandmaster were very complicated. It was very difficult to decipher them. The great demon king didn't act rashly. Instead, she sent a small number of soldiers to scout. She stood outside the divine inscription training ground and observed. She was wearing a black soft armor, but it was unable to conceal her graceful and delicate figure. Countless people stared at her body in midair with a hint of intoxication and awe in their eyes. A woman could make people love her to the bone and also make people fear her to the bone. The great demon king was probably the first woman in history. Under normal circumstances, how could anyone fall in love with a woman that made people fear her? The great demon king had this kind of magic. She had never revealed her true appearance. If she was really as beautiful as the rumors said, many people would probably go crazy with her. She had an indescribable charm. Her petite body, which was neither tall nor short, exuded an aura that could involuntarily attract the gazes of men. Once their gazes locked onto her body, many people felt that they could no longer look away. That petite body of hers contained boundless energy. With a wave of her hand, she could shatter the heavens and shatter the earth. She could kill countless experts. This delicate body had protected countless people on the Heavenly Devil Island, giving them courage to press forward, making their blood boil, and making them willing to die for it. 10 times, each time 100 people entered, these 1,000 people were all killed by the Divine Inscriptions Dojo. However, the people sent out were all low-level cultivators. With sufficient compensation, these 1,000 people were willing to die. The great demon king finally made her move. She rushed into the Divine Inscriptions Dojo alone, and the dojo immediately unleashed countless killing moves, wanting to kill the great demon king. Sounds of metal cracking and stone cracking rang out from within, causing the hearts of the people outside to palpitate. They were all extremely worried. If the great demon king died in battle, the other major powers would immediately join forces and launch a counterattack. The three great islands would eventually be destroyed. Boom, boom, boom. Very quickly, the earth trembled. Huge cracks extended from the Divine Inscriptions Dojo, extending all the way to the feet of the crowd. These cracks were hundreds of meters wide and seemed bottomless. It felt as though the entire Red Tears Island was about to split apart. Everyone attack. The great demon king's voice was filled with boundless killing intent. The Divine Inscriptions Dojo was broken apart. Rays of light flashed, and the mist dissipated, revealing the terrified and helpless faces of the people inside. Kill! Island Lord Weah and Island Lord Stardream roared. They took the lead and rushed in. The army erupted with roars of rage as they rushed in. The troops and experts hidden inside were forced to retreat. The Divine Inscriptions Dojo was destroyed, and their will to fight was also extinguished. The battle didn't last for too long. It ended a day later. Other than a small number of people who managed to escape, the majority of the troops and experts from the two major powers were annihilated. The names of the two major powers were erased from the second heavenly layer. The 36 major powers were reduced to 28. The 8 powers that joined forces to attack the Heavenly Devil Island, Stardream Island, and Boundless Island were all annihilated. The news circulated, and all the major powers in the second heavenly layer felt a formless pressure gushing over them. Even such a powerful divine inscription's dojo couldn't stop the great Demon King. Who else in the entire second heavenly layer could stop her? Countless scouts patrolled the area, paying attention to the great Demon King's movements. If the great Demon King wanted to continue fighting, the remaining major powers could only join forces. The great Demon King didn't continue fighting. Instead, she brought a small number of people and flew back to the Heavenly Devil Island. The remaining people were left to clean up the battlefield and collect the spoils of war. Not only did the great Demon King not want any spoils of war, she didn't even want the 8 heavenly islands she conquered. Half a month later, countless scouts confirmed that the great Demon King had returned to the Heavenly Devil Island and didn't make any moves. All the major powers in the second heavenly layer heaved a sigh of relief. Many major powers regarded the great Demon King as a supreme expert that they absolutely couldn't fight against. The army that followed behind the great Demon King struck it rich. Although they didn't dare to loot the last 2 islands, after looting the 6 islands, many of them became extremely rich. There were even some who had designs on the 6 islands. They wanted to occupy one of the islands and slowly develop. Maybe they would have the opportunity to become a new major power. The armies of Boundless Island and Stardream Island retreated. They didn't have the intention to occupy the Heavenly Islands. They were very clear that if their appetite was too big, they would be stuffed to death. In history, there were some major powers that occupied a few Heavenly Islands. However, they were all attacked by the other powers and were eventually destroyed. The 8 Heavenly Islands were like 8 huge pieces of fat meat. It was estimated that many reclusive experts and many medium-sized powers had already set their eyes on them. If they wanted to occupy one of the islands, they would have to suffer from cold arrows shot from all directions. However, since the great Demon King didn't say anything, no one dared to fight for the islands in the beginning. If they angered the great Demon King, they wouldn't even know how they died. On the 3rd day after the great Demon King returned to the Heavenly Devil Island, she sent out a message. She didn't want any of the 8 heavenly islands. As long as the Heavenly Devil Island wasn't provoked, she wouldn't take the initiative to attack. If anyone dared to offend the Heavenly Devil Island, they would be killed. As soon as the great Demon King's message came out, all the major powers in the second heavenly layer heaved a sigh of relief. The 8 heavenly islands immediately became lively. On the 2nd day, a bloody battle broke out on the 3 islands. It was estimated that the Battle of the Heavenly Islands would last for a long time. Endless blood would dye the 8 heavenly islands red. Chapter 1926. On the 5th day after the devil came back, Luli came out from cultivation. It was not because he had mastered the unfettered steps, but because Patriarch Lu woke him up. Fairy Tianyin was back and wanted to see him. On his way to the hall, Luli had been thinking about whether he should tell her about the old Azura or not. Later, Fairy Tianyin would ask him about it. If he didn't, Fairy Tianyin was nice to him. But if he did, he was afraid that the old Azura would blame him. In the hall, Luli turned into a side chamber. He still hadn't made up his mind. He bowed and said, "Greetings, Fairy Tianyin. Congratulations on your victorious return." "Haha." Fairy Tianyin seemed to be in a good mood. She laughed and then asked, "Luli, I'm glad that you can come back. The Palace of Demons is full of dangers." Fairy Tianyin didn't ask, but her meaning was clear. She wanted Luli to tell her about the situation in the Palace of Demons. Luli puckered his lips, bowed, and said, "Thank you, Fairy Maiden. I just got lucky and got out by chance." Well, the patriarchs of the Heaven Measureless Mountain and the Bald Man are still trapped in the dungeon of the Palace of Demons. I'm the only one that made it out. Luli still didn't tell her about the old Azura. He didn't even go into details. He just gave a simple explanation. Fairy Tianyin didn't ask more questions. she said after a moment of silence. The contest of geniuses will begin in 3 years. Are you confident that you can kill Yankaiwa? Not yet. Luli couldn't kill a 3 trials heaven god yet. The dark golden worms of the void were not enough. He thought about it and said, but give me some more time. I think I will be able to do it. At least, Yin Kai Wei cannot kill me. Well, go back to cultivation. There is something wrong with the primordial mystery realm. I cannot go back any time soon. Fairy Tian Yun said with pity. If you need anything else, just let Patriarch Shin know. Fairy Tian Yun. Luli didn't leave. Instead, he bowed and said, maybe in a couple of months, I will go out. I will leave the Omen Island to seek some opportunities. I promise you, I will be back in 3 years. I will not miss the contest of geniuses. Okay. Fairy Tian Yun did not even think about it as she replied, just be careful outside. Yinhong scouts should not have retreated. Be careful not to get killed by the people of Black Flame Hall. Thank you, Fairy. I will be careful. Luli bowed and left. As soon as he walked out, Patriarch Shin showed up. He patted Lu Li's shoulder with a smile and said, Punk, not bad. You can walk out of the Palace of Demons. You're like a cat with 9 lives. I was just lucky. Since Fairy Tian Yun didn't mention it, Luli didn't want to talk about Patriarch Shun either. Luli exchanged some conventional greetings with Patriarch Shun. Patriarch Shun wanted to get more information out of Luli, but Luli just brushed it off. He didn't tell Patriarch Chun the specifics of the Palace of Demons. After chatting for a while, Elder Chun saw that he couldn't get any information out of Zhang Xian. So he gave up. Luli went back to his own castle. When he walked in, he found someone who had been missing for a long time. Lady Yi had returned. Such a coincidence. Luli looked at Lady Yi, who was drinking tea leisurely in the room. Fairy Tianyan had just come back, and Lady Yi was here. This young lady did not follow the army into battle. Can it be that Lady Yi is Fairy Tianyan? A bold idea came to Lu Li's mind, but soon he dismissed it. Lady Yi was too young. Fairy Tianyan was a sister of the Demon King. She must have lived for tens of thousands of years, or even more than 100,000 years. It was impossible for her to be so young. She has reached the 3rd tribulation. Luli was surprised again. He sensed the energy of the 3rd tribulation on Lady Yi. Lady Yi must be a top talent, even at the 2nd heaven, if she had reached the 3rd tribulation at such a young age. Luli, why are you standing there in a daze? Don't you recognize me? Lady Yi's eyes were curved into crescent moons. She was so playful that she looked like an elf. This Lady Yi was a lady of all kinds. She could change her temperament at any time, and she could control them with ease. Luli hurried over, cupped his fists, and said, Congratulations, Lady Yi. You have reached the 3rd tribulation at such a young age. I don't think there are many at the 2nd heaven that can compete with you. There's one right in front of me. Lady Yi had a cunning look in her eyes. She stared at Luli and said, Luli, you can walk out from the Palace of Demons alone. You must be as powerful as a warrior at the later stage of the 3rd tribulation, right? As far as I know, average warriors at the 3rd tribulation will die in the Palace of Demons. Lady Yi turned the tables on Luli. This man must be favored by Fairy Tianyan. He knew everything. Luli walked over with a bitter smile and said, Do you think I am an immortal? How can I improve so fast in such a short time? I walked out by chance. My abilities have not improved by much. Lady Yi frowned. She glared at Luli and said, Don't say it if you don't want to. Don't lie to me. Chance. Go to the Hall of Black Flame now and see if you are so lucky that you can come back safe and sound. Luli smiled awkwardly. He didn't answer. He changed the subject. Lady Yi, have you been to the 3rd heaven? I thought you have to go to the 3rd heaven to pass the 3rd tribulation. Who told you that you have to go to the 3rd heaven? Lady Yi rolled her eyes. Her charm had turned into something else. After a pause, she explained, There are more than a dozen places in the 2nd heaven that have platforms for tribulation. If you are powerful enough, you can even go to the 4th tribulation here. Really? Luli was surprised. His eyes flickered as he asked, You went through the heavenly tribulation alone? When you made the breakthrough, The Demon King must have gone to battle with all the powerful warriors. You went alone, without anyone to protect you? I am not telling you. Lady E stood up angrily and said, You have your secrets, and I have mine. You are so narrow-minded. Why should I tell you everything? I am leaving. I am leaving. Lady E became an unruly young lady. She stood up and walked out in strides. At the door, she turned around and said, The contest of geniuses will be held in 3 years. Luli, you must work hard. I heard that there are some talented geniuses from some major forces. If your abilities don't improve, you will not survive the contest of geniuses. Thank you, Lady E. Luli stood up and said with a smile, I don't know if I can win the contest of geniuses or not, but I will not die. Then I will wait and see. Lady E flew away like a green cloud, leaving behind a pleasant smell in the room. Luli wasn't in a hurry to cultivate. He sat in the hall and drank tea for more than 2 hours. 3 years could be a long time, but it could also be a short time. He could master the happy steps in half a year at most. By then, he would have a way to save his life. If he could find the marrow, his defensive abilities would be improved as well. I wish I could go through the second tribulation. Luli sighed. He was still a first tribulation divine god. His realm was too low, which was his weakness. But he knew himself. If he were to go through the second tribulation in his current state, he might be trapped in the tribulation of mind and soul forever. Chapter 1927. Whoosh, whoosh, in a wilderness to the north of Mount Cloud, a man was flashing around like a ghost. One moment, he would appear in this mountain. The next moment, he would appear in another mountain thousands of miles away. And the next moment, he would appear thousands of miles away to the left. His footsteps continued to stride in the void. It was very mysterious. Every time he took a step, time seemed to freeze at that moment. The space also seemed to distort. His body suddenly disappeared from where he was and reappeared thousands of miles away. Time and time again, he would teleport again and again. After 6 hours, Luli finally stopped. He didn't look happy. Instead, his eyebrows were knitted together as if he had run into a problem. It had been half a year since the devil came back. Luli had been cultivating for half a year. He came out the day before yesterday and came here for the test. The happy steps was amazing. He felt his current speed was incredible, but he still didn't think it was enough. In other words, he hadn't mastered the happy steps yet. He felt if he could master it, his speed could be increased by 10 times. He didn't know what the problem was, but he felt something was missing. He stood in the mountain, thinking with a frown. He recalled the test and compared it with what he had learned to find the problem. He didn't know how fast a warrior at the peak of the third tribulation could be, but it must be faster than him. He stood there for 10 days and learned nothing. He thought about it, but didn't find any problems. He had comprehended everything according to the secret manual of the unfettered steps. This was the limit of what he could comprehend now. I think I will have to meet the old man and ask him face to face. Luli sighed and forced a smile. He was fast now. Average warriors at the third tribulation couldn't catch up with him, unless they were at the later stage or the peak of the third tribulation. There were many warriors at the third tribulation at the second heaven, but few at the later stage. Uncle Shan should be at the initial stage of the third tribulation, and Patriarch Chun should be at the same stage. Yu Qianghua should be at the later stage of the third tribulation, and Fairy Tianyun at the peak of the third tribulation. Those at the peak of the third tribulation should be the leaders or the chief patriarchs of some forces. They were rare in the second heaven. Normally, warriors at this level wouldn't come after a young man like him for no reason. It would be humiliating. Even if the Grand Master of the Hall of Black Flames knew where he was, he wouldn't come after him easily. Therefore, now that he had left the Heavenly Devil Island, as long as he was careful, no one should be able to kill him. 2.5 years to go. Luli was ready to leave the Omen Island to look for the marrow. He could not enter the primordial mystic land. It was too difficult to rely on lightning to strengthen his physical body. He could only search for such top-notch divine medicines to strengthen his physical body. He had a dream in his heart, and that was to cultivate a peerless divine body. At that time, he would become an unkillable cockroach, and with the unfettered steps, he would be able to go anywhere in the world. He took out the map that old Shura had given him and the map of the second sky. After scanning it a few times, he found the location of the spirit marrow. Stormy Sea Region. Old Shura's map pointed to a rather famous sea region in the second heaven. This sea region was in the south-central part of the second heaven, and it was a bit far from where they were. Based on Lu Li's previous speed, it would take him at least 10 years to get there in a straight line. With his current speed, even if he flew in a straight line, it would probably take half a year, right? There were 5 great powers in that sea region, and 2 of them were ranked in the top 10. Most importantly, the Black Flame Hall was in that sea. Lu Li was having a headache. If old Shura could kill the Grandmaster of the Black Flame Hall, then everything would be fine. If he couldn't kill Lu Li, then once his identity was exposed, he would be walking into a trap. There was another thing. Flying in a straight line would take more than half a year. If there were any delays along the way, it would take him a year. A round trip would take 2 years. Once something went wrong, he might not be able to make it back in time. By then, he would have broken his promise with Fairy Tianyun. Lu Li had always been a man of his word. He would do what he promised. If he were to go to the Stormy Sea region now, he might have to break his promise. If he didn't go, he would not be able to improve his abilities. How could he kill Yun Kaiwe in the fight of geniuses? Go back. After some thoughts, Lu Li decided to find Fairy Tianyun and tell her about his problem. What if she had a solution? He didn't dare to use the unfettered steps. He just ran back in a straight line. This was a remote place, some distance from the Cloud Mountain. Lu Li arrived at the Cloud Mountain in 4 to 6 hours. He found Patriarch Chun. An hour later, Lu Li was brought into the palace. As soon as he entered the side chamber, Fairy Tianyun's voice came. Lu Li, you are leaving the Omen Island? Fairy. Lu Li cupped his fists and said, I want to go to the Stormy Sea region. I know there is a place with marrow that can help me improve my body, but it is too far away. If there are any delays along the way, I might not be able to make it back in 2.5 years. I want to ask you, apart from flying, is there any shortcut? Shortcut? Yes. Fairy Tianyun replied. If you know how to open a space gate, you can teleport there in one go. You can also take the teleportation altar on the islands. It will save you more than half a year. Of course, it will require a large amount of divine origin gold, and your identity will be exposed. Sure, Lu Li didn't know what opening a space gate was. He didn't know about teleportation altars. Many islands had them, but they would require expensive divine origin gold. Lu Li gave all the divine origin gold he had to Lady E. He only had a small amount of divine origin gold on him. He got it from killing warriors of the Heaven Immortal Mountain. Whoosh! Lu Li heard a noise. It was a bronze mask. He grabbed it and heard Fairy Tianyun's voice. This is a mask I got a long time ago. There are some runes on it that can cover up your energy and looks. Unless you run into a warrior at the peak of the third tribulation or a warrior with a strong soul, no one will be able to tell who you are. Thank you, Fairy. Lu Li was overjoyed. With this mask, he could hide his identity. As long as he had divine origin gold, he could take the teleportation altar again and again. Don't thank me so soon. Fairy Tianyun paused for a moment and said, I have a lot of divine origin gold, but I will not give you any of them. It is a mess outside the Omen Island. Warriors are everywhere. The 8 heavenly islands are in a war. If you want divine origin gold, go get it yourself. If you want to go out and explore, if you want to improve your abilities, you must go through the trials of blood and fire. Fairy Tianyun's tone became cold. I have given you enough. You will have to rely on yourself from now on. I just want you to come back in 2.5 years unless you die out there. If you don't die and you don't come back in 2.5 years, I will kill you myself. Yes. Even though Fairy Tianyun's tone was cold and she made it clear that she would kill him herself, Lu Li had no complaints. Originally, he had an agreement with Fairy Tianyun. Fairy Tianyun had indeed given him enough, so he couldn't go back on his word. There are 7 or 8 old bastards cultivating in the storm area. Take this map. You cannot go to the places marked with red dots, or you will die for sure. Another noise came. Lu Li took it over and saw it was a map. He put away after a glance, cupped his fists, thanked her, and left. Storm area, the Hall of Black Flames, is in the storm area, right? Chapter 1928. Luli was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, he went to Patriarch Chun to ask about something. Luli went into Patriarch Chen's palace. Patriarch Chun welcomed Lu Lian warmly. After tea was served, Luli asked directly, Patriarch Chun, how is the situation out there? Is there anything big happening at the second heaven? Luli wanted to know if old Azura had killed the Grand Master of the Hall of Black Flames. But he couldn't ask directly, so he had to beat around the bush. What is it? Patriarch Chun was surprised. He thought about it and said, nothing big. It's just that some islands nearby are in a fierce fight. 3 of them are occupied by 3 old farts. The 3 old farts used to be independent cultivators, and they were all at the peak of the 3rd tribulation. After they occupied the 3 islands, they began to build forces, recruit warriors, and build divine glyphs. What else? Luli didn't care about this. He only wanted to know about the Hall of Black Flames. Patriarch Chun misunderstood. He thought Luli was asking about the other islands. Patriarch Chun said, the other 5 islands are fighting fiercely. Middle-level forces at the Southern Ocean have all taken action. Many forces know that they cannot occupy the islands on their own. Therefore, they have formed an alliance of 2 or 3 forces. There are tens of thousands of small and medium-sized forces at the Southern Ocean. The fight is in full swing. It is said that the seawater at the Heavenly Island has turned blood red. To become a super force at the second heaven, there must be 2 characteristics. Either a powerful warrior as the leader or a force must occupy an island. Only then could a force be regarded as a major force. The Heavenly Island was rich in Xianxi, and there were many blessed lands. Not only could warriors cultivate faster, but the islands could also produce divine materials and divine treasures. In the long run, warriors on the islands could improve their abilities. In history, when any island was vacated, there would be fierce fights and fights. After hundreds of years, the overall strength of a force that occupied an island would be improved by leaps and bounds. Now, 8 islands were vacated. 3 of them had been occupied by 3 powerful independent cultivators, but there were still 5 left. The tens of thousands of forces at the Southern Ocean were envious and wanted to take the islands for themselves. Luli thought about it and asked directly, I may have to go out soon. I want to know, is there any news from the Hall of Black Flames? Are you going out? Elder Chin's expression turned grave as he said, Isn't your combat strength a little too low? If you go out, it'll be very dangerous. The scouts of the Black Flame Hall outside the island should not have left. I haven't heard of any movements from the Black Flame Hall recently. Oh right, it seems that a very powerful goddess has appeared in their ranks. She has been hiding and hasn't come out yet. It is said that they're preparing to make a move in the Genius Tournament this time. They're going to suppress everyone and obtain first place in the Genius ranking. Oh, Luli didn't care about the Immortal Lady. There was an Immortal Lady at the Shanqing Palace. Luli was annoyed by the sight of them. They were the chosen sons and daughters of God and had their eyes on the top of their heads. Luli hated dealing with them. His mind spun and he asked, Have any peerless experts appeared recently? Is there a great battle between peerless experts? Why do you ask? Patriarch Chun looked at Luli with suspicion. Seeing that Luli had no intention to answer, Patriarch Chun shook his head and said, Apart from the 3 rogue cultivators that try to snatch the Heavenly Island, there are no other powerful warriors. All the major forces are very low-key and don't dare to act recklessly for fear of angering the great Demon King. Oh, I understand now. Luli was disappointed. It seemed that the old man hadn't recovered from his wounds. Was he resting somewhere, or was he off to tend to his own business? He said that he had some wishes that were not fulfilled. Also, he would go to the Palace of All Life to look for his descendants. Luli didn't ask any more questions. He chatted with Patriarch Chun and told him that he was going out and that he had told Fairy Tianyan about it. Patriarch Chun didn't try to persuade Luli any further. He just told Luli to be careful and warned him not to provoke the more than a dozen middle-sized forces in the Sea of Storms. Some of them were tough. Luli went back to his own palace and took out the map of the second heaven to check. Soon, he found the Palace of All Life. After taking a look, he was even more disappointed. The Palace of All Life was to the northwest, far away from here. If the old man went to the Palace of All Life, it would take him years to teleport there. I must keep a low profile and try not to provoke the Hall of Black Flames. Luli made up his mind. He sat with his legs crossed for a while, and then got up to go down the mountain to talk to Uncle Lee. Also, he was going to give Uncle Lee's soul seal back to him and set him free. Uncle Lee had been with him for some years. Luli's abilities had far surpassed Uncle Lee's, so he didn't need Uncle Lee to go with him anymore. He might as well set Uncle Lee free in case something happened to him, and Uncle Lee would be implicated. Rustle, rustle, rustle. As soon as he got up, he heard some footsteps and a gust of fragrance. It was Lady E outside. Seeing that Luli was about to go out, she pouted and said, "Are you going down the mountain? You're leaving the Omen Island. Why don't you say goodbye to me? It's not like I won't come back." Luli smiled embarrassedly and added, "What is more, I don't even know where you live. Where can I go to say goodbye to you?" Lady E put on a solemn expression. She looked at Luli and asked, "Are you sure you can protect yourself out there?" "Yes." Luli didn't hide anything. He said with certainty, "As long as I don't run into warriors at the peak of the third tribulation, nobody can kill me." "Oh." Lady E was surprised. She looked at Luli with a frown and said, "You must have gained a lot in the Palace of Demons. I was worried about you for nothing." Buzzing, Lady Yi's ring glowed. She took out an interspatial ring and said, "This is the divine origin gold you gave me. I will give it back to you. You can use it on the way." "It's okay." Luli waved his hand and said, "This amount of divine origin gold is not enough for me to teleport to the Sea of Storms. It is a mess out there. It is a good time to rob. I want to go and gain some experience as well. If I can't even get some divine origin gold, then I don't need to go to the Sea of Storms." "That's true." Young lady, you put away the spatial ring. Her eyes flickered as she took out a jade bottle from the ring and said, "There are 3 pills in here. They're called explosive yuan pills. These pills can instantly increase your divine power by 5 times, but can only last for 2 hours. Also, after 2 hours, you will enter a period of weakness, and it will take you 3 days to recover. In other words, these 3 pellets are for you to save your life. Don't use them unless you have to." "Thank you." Luli looked at Lady E gratefully. This kind of pellet was similar to the Hall of Life and Death's elixirs he used in the past. But clearly, this kind of pellet was of a higher level and didn't have such severe side effects. "Time to go." Luli gave Lady E a meaningful look and walked out with determination. Soon, he disappeared from the foot of the Cloud Mountain. Chapter 1929. They found Uncle Lee, and Luli gave him back his freedom. Uncle Lee was moved to tears. He was right about Luli. In such a short time, Luli had given him back his freedom. Even though he had his freedom back, he was still afraid to leave the Omen Island. Hearing that Luli was going to the storm area, he shamelessly asked Luli to go to a small island and bring his daughter over. The Black Flame Hall's sphere of influence was in the Stormy Sea region. Bringing a little girl along would not be too troublesome. Luli said that if he had the chance, he would definitely bring it over. With that said, Luli didn't leave in a hurry. Instead, he began to consume the bronze mask. He didn't want anyone to know that he was leaving. Otherwise, if the news spread, someone would definitely ambush him. After spending half a day refining the mask, it had 3 forms. The first was the bronze form, which looked like a ferocious beast. Also, he could turn into a human skin mask and turn into a very ordinary young man. After transforming, Uncle Lee could not even feel that he was wearing a mask. The third type had the appearance of a malicious spirit, which looked even more sinister and terrifying. Luli hid the mask inside his body and went down the mountain in a low-key manner. He told others that he was going to the Demon King Mountain to cultivate. After he left the Cloud Mountain, he took a detour and headed towards the north. After finding a secluded place, he changed into an airtight armor and put on a helmet. At the same time, he changed the bronze mask into the appearance of a malicious spirit. Then, he rushed out of the heavenly Devil Island. He didn't use the full power of the unfettered steps, or else it would be too shocking and cause a huge uproar. He casually used it, and his body moved forward like a ghost. Shao Chun activated the mark of the Great Tao, and his senses became several dozen times sharper. He had long since sensed the hidden cultivators in the surroundings and changed his direction. After 3 days, Luli was only noticed by one person. The others had already sensed it and had gone away to hide. There was an old man hiding with psychic power. He had locked on a Lu Li from afar. That old man wanted to rush out from underground to kill Lu Li. However, Lu Li suddenly sped up and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The old man was so scared that he retreated at once. The next few days were peaceful. Even though there were many roving bandits at the Omen Island, Lu Li was fast and his senses were sharp. He could avoid them easily. After another 2 days, the edge of the island was right in front of them. Lu Li was excited. After being in the second heaven for so many years, he could finally leave the demonic island and wander around. Originally, he thought he might have to cultivate in seclusion on Heavenly Devil Island for 100 years or even longer. Lu Li looked at the endless sea in the distance, at the light red water. He took several deep breaths, stepped forward, and dashed into the sea. There were soldiers patrolling the edges of the island, but the soldiers didn't care if the people of the Heavenly Devil Island went out. Entry and exit to the Heavenly Devil Island was very easy. As long as one wasn't a member of the 36 Great Forces or publicly announced that they had left the 36 Great Forces, they could join the Heavenly Devil Island. The Great Demon King had a breadth of mind that no man could compare to. This was something that all the martial artists of the Heavenly Devil Island admired. If you think it's good, you can stay on Heavenly Devil Island. If you don't like it, you can leave at any time. The warriors glanced at Lu Li but ignored him. Lu Li dashed out of the ocean and flew toward the north. His target was very clear. It was a heavenly island in the north, Raging Flame Island. The competition for this island had been fierce recently. There were 4 groups of people fighting for this island, and each group was made up of 3 mid-sized forces. There were more than 100,000 warriors in the 3 groups. Many rogue cultivators were trying to fish in troubled waters. The island was bustling. Lu Li needed a large amount of divine origin gold unless he sold his treasures, such as the 9 strange mountains, which could fetch a high price. Otherwise, he would have to rob. The Raging Flame Island was in chaos with constant battles. It was the best way to fish in troubled waters. There was some distance between the Raging Flame Island and the Great Demon King had to fly with his army for half a month. Granted, the army couldn't travel fast, but it would take Lu Li at least 10 days to get there. He didn't dare to fly around recklessly. What if he offended some powerful warriors? He flew close to the surface, keeping a low profile. At first, he didn't even dare to use the happy steps. It was quiet around the Heavenly Devil Island. Lu Li found scouts on many small islands nearby. They must be sent by the major forces to keep an eye on the Heavenly Devil Island. Maybe there were scouts from the Hall of Black Flames here. Lu Li changed his mask into a ghost mask. This kind of mask looked ferocious and horrifying, but it was common. His realm was low as well, only at the First Tribulation realm, which made him unnoticeable. Lu Li didn't mind when some scouts saw him. He would ignore them as long as they didn't provoke him. He kept a low profile along the way. He ran into many people after half a day, but nobody came to kill him. He began to pick up speed. It was getting dark. Lu Li didn't find a place to rest. Night was the best time to travel. He could use the darkness to hide himself. He began to fly at full speed. His steps were mysterious. Every time he stepped forward, time would be sped up and space would twist. He would disappear and then reappear thousands of miles away in the next second. He was not flying in the air. This was kind of footwork. He was moving steadily on a horizontal line. Therefore, he wouldn't trigger the spatial ripples in the sky. He was safe. He used the happy steps to the extreme. He could cover thousands of miles in one step. He was faster than many warriors of the third tribulation realm. Under the cover of the darkness, Luli hurried on. There were scouts lurking nearby, but before they could see him clearly, he had vanished into the distance. There was a small island where dozens of scouts were lurking. Luli's sudden appearance above the island alarmed all of them. They thought a powerful warrior was coming. However, before they could react, Luli had vanished into thin air and reappeared thousands of miles away. The scouts didn't even see what Luli looked like. Peak of the third tribulation realm. One of them exclaimed with fear in his eyes. Only warriors at the peak of the third tribulation realm can be this fast. How can there be warriors at the peak of the third tribulation realm nearby? Apart from the devil, Lord of Boundless Island and Lord of Star Dream Island, there are no warriors at the peak of the third tribulation realm. Is there a hidden warrior going to fight for the Heavenly Islands? It is possible. Report it. Another scout realized something. If a warrior at the peak of the third tribulation realm showed up, it could change the situation. One of the Heavenly Islands would be gone. Then the forces here would have to target the other Heavenly Islands. Luli ran into many people along the way, but nobody dared to chase him. They might not be able to keep up with him even if they wanted to. The longer Luli flew, the more excited he became. With his speed, there were few people that could pose a threat to him. Plus, he had the bronze mask. Nobody would know who he was, which would increase his safety. Luli didn't know how far he had traveled during the night. At dawn, he slowed down. He was exhausted after a night of traveling. The constant use of the happy steps was a drain on his spirit. Chapter 1930. When a man wanted to rest, he hated to be disturbed. Even though Luli didn't sleep, he had just recovered some energy. Inevitably, he was unhappy that he was targeted by dozens of psychic powers. He didn't plan to make a move. He just sat on the island with his legs crossed. If the warriors didn't provoke him, he would continue to rest. Clearly, those warriors wouldn't let him be. 3 of them flew down from the iron ship and came at him. Luli had to pay attention. He used psychic power to check the iron ship. There were at least 1,000 warriors on the ship, and many young masters and young ladies. He sensed that there were no third tribulation heaven gods here. The most powerful ones were only at the peak of the second tribulation. Luli sneered. The 3 of them flew down from 3 different directions and surrounded him. One of them shouted in a deep voice, "Which force are you from? Behave yourself, or we will kill you." Luli stood up and said, "I am from the Boundless Island. What do you want?" "Boundless Island?" The 3 warriors were stunned. One of them said in disbelief, "Where is your ID token? Take out your Boundless Island identity token." "Why should I show you?" Luli squinted at him and said, "Who are you? Do you own this land? Why do you have to interrogate me?" Luli was so aggressive that the 3 were afraid to do anything rash. They came down because of a young master of their family. That young master noticed that Luli was still young and didn't run away from the iron ship. Luli was sitting here with his legs crossed and cultivating, so the 3 warriors were sent down to question him. "We are from the 4th Flat Island." One of them said, "Friend, in order to avoid any misunderstanding, I think you should show us your ID token. As long as you are from the Boundless Island, we will not make things difficult for you." "No," Luli answered in an aggressive manner. "If you do anything, you will have to bear the consequences." From the iron ship came a snort. A young master in a robe walked to the edge of the iron ship, looked down at Luli, and said, "He is wearing armor and a mask. I think he is from the Heaven Fragrant Island. Since he cannot show us his ID token, let's take him down first." So the 4th Flat Island and the Heaven Fragrant Island are enemies. They have mistaken me for someone from the Heaven Fragrant Island. Luli was relieved, but he didn't panic. He looked at that young master. He was looking for a fat sheep, and this young master was a good one. "Take him," a warrior shouted. The 3 of them took action almost at the same time. They took out their weapons and stabbed at Luli from 3 directions. The 3 of them were all second tribulation heavenly gods. Their battle prowess was neither strong nor weak. They were passable. Facing the 3 swords, Luli didn't move. He just let the 3 swords come at him. With a golden glow on his hand, he smashed at the man in front of him. Golden. The attacks of the three arrived at the same time and hit Lu Li. Lu Li's armor was penetrated in an instant, but the swords could not penetrate into his body. Lu Li's body was strong. Not even a warrior of this level could break his defense. Lu Li waved his hand and knocked away the three swords. He moved and punched at a warrior in front of him. Accompanied by a muffled explosion, that person's chest was penetrated by Lu Li in one breath. Shio. After Lu Li killed one man, he dashed towards the iron ship like a ghost with some strange footwork. Before many people on the iron ship could react, he had already rushed in front of that young master. Young master, be careful, retreat. There were 3 peak second tribulation cultivators in the cabin of the iron ship. The 3 of them had been paying attention to the situation below. They originally thought that even if the 3 people below were not enemies, they would still need some time. Unexpectedly, after Lu Li killed one of them, he left the other 2 and rushed to the iron ship to attack their young master. This young master was not a good-for-nothing. Seeing Lu Li flying towards him, he took out a saber at once. While stepping back, he swung his saber at Lu Li. There were divine patterns glistening on the saber, and Lu Li felt something as heavy as a mountain. There were 2 warriors with this young master. Seeing that Lu Li was going to kill their young master, they both took out their weapons and hacked at Lu Li. Oomph. Lu Li moved his feet and stuck close to the 2 escorts like a ghost. The 2 escorts missed their target. Lu Li ignored the young master's saber and reached for the young master's neck with his other hand. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. There were nearly 1,000 people on the iron ship. Many of them came to their senses and dashed towards Lu Li. But they were too slow. Lu Li had already gotten close to that young master. He took the blow by the saber, grabbed the young master's neck, and lifted him up. The 3 warriors at the peak of the second tribulation rushed out, but they didn't dare to move anymore. Lu Li had a dead body in one hand. That man was wearing armor, and his chest was pierced through by Lu Li's fist. Lu Li held their young master's neck in the other hand. Their young master kept hacking at Lu Li with his saber. Even though Lu Li's armor was cracked, his body and mask were not harmed at all. If I were you, I would not move. As soon as I put more strength into my hand, your neck will be crushed and your head will be cut off. Lu Li looked up coldly. His eyes were as cold as ice. That young master's heart trembled. The young master stopped moving his saber. His mouth trembled as he said, "Who are you? What do you want?" Lu Li said indifferently, "I have forgotten my real name, but someone call me the Hell Killer. I belong to no sect, and I wander the world on my own. I am passing by and want to take a rest on this island, but you want to kill me. I will have to give you a taste of your own medicine." "Sir, no." A warrior at the peak of the second tribulation stepped out and said, "We have offended you. I am Chun Guangyang, a patriarch of the 4 Flat Island. This is the only son of our island owner. My island owner is Chun Tianfong. I am at the 3rd tribulation. Please, for our island owner's sake." "The 3rd tribulation?" Lu Li sneered and said, "Is the 3rd tribulation powerful? Are you telling me that your island owner is an immortal at the 3rd tribulation, and I have to kneel on the ground and let you do whatever you want of me?" "That is not what I meant." Chun Guangyang waved his hand and said, "This is just a misunderstanding. Please forgive our young master's rudeness. The 4 Flat Island will repay you handsomely in the future." "No need for that." Lu Li waved his hand and threw the body onto the iron ship. He said coldly, "Repay me handsomely now. How much divine origin gold are you going to pay for your young master's life? If not, I will send your young master on his way." Repayment was just a polite remark. They didn't expect that Lu Li was going to put a price on it. The 3 elders looked at each other and discussed for a while through voice transmission. Chun Guangyang said, "This time, we're going to meet up with the island master, so we didn't bring too much divine origin gold with us. If we all pool it together, we'll be able to gather 30,000 divine origin gold. Are you satisfied? Do you think I'm a beggar? Or is your young master only worth 30,000 divine origin gold?" Lu Li glared at him and said angrily, "If you don't have 300,000 divine origin gold, I will twist your young master's head off and kick it like a ball." If you don't have enough divine origin gold, you can pay with treasures. Just tell me if you are willing or not. If not, I will kill you. 300,000 divine origin gold. Chapter 1931. Even if they were beaten to death, they would not be able to take out 300,000 divine essence gold, unless they pawned off all the treasures they had on them. They were going to the battlefield, so would they not be smacked to death by the island lord if they went there like this? A red-bearded patriarch was enraged. He looked at Luli coldly and said, "Punk, I don't care who you are. If you dare to hurt one hair of our young master, I will kill you even if I have to hunt you down for 100 years. One hair? Luli sneered. He must have hurt a lot of hair by now. A glint of coldness rose in Luli's eyes. He put more strength into his hand. There came a clear sound of bones cracking. Then, that young master screamed like a duck. Qin Guangyang shouted, "Stop!" Whoosh! Luli didn't stop. He carried the young master in one hand and dashed toward the red-bearded old man like a ghost. Luli threw a punch at the old man's chest. "How dare you?" The old man was enraged. He took out a spear and was about to stab Luli. However, Luli moved his other hand and put their young master in front of him. The patriarch was so scared that he took back the spear. Luli had already punched. This elder was wearing the primordial spirit heaven treasure battle armor. However, Luli knew the spirit explosion secret skill. With one punch, layers of energy exploded inside the primordial spirit heaven treasure battle armor. The elder spat out blood as he was sent flying. All his ribs were broken, and his internal organs were damaged. Poof! The patriarch smashed into the iron ship. The entire iron ship shook violently. He bounced back and rolled on the ground. He didn't seem to be hurt. However, blood gushed out from his mouth. He looked awful. Hiss, hiss, many people gasped. Luli was attacking their patriarch face to face. How could he injure a patriarch at the peak of the second tribulation with one punch? What kind of skill was that? Luli didn't use any powerful skill. It was just that his hand glowed in golden light. He was only at the first tribulation realm, but he could injure someone at the peak of the second tribulation realm. Nobody dared to look down on Luli anymore. Luli was not someone who held the emperor hostage. He was capable enough to kill everyone here. If he didn't handle this well today, everyone here would die. Please calm down, sir. Qin Guangyang was very sensible. He cupped his hands and smiled apologetically. 300,000 divine origin gold. No problem. We will think of a way to gather them. Luli calmly carried that young master to the side and waited for the 300,000 pieces of divine origin gold to be offered. Qin Guangyang immediately gathered everyone. He first took out the divine origin gold and threw it on the deck. There were many young masters and young mistresses here, and they all had divine origin gold on them. There were also many commanders and soldiers. All of their divine origin gold was taken out and piled up on the ground. Everyone's divine origin gold was taken out, adding up to about 70 to 80,000 divine origin gold. Qin Guangyang took out a spatial ring and stored all the divine origin gold inside. He threw it to Luli and said, "There are about 80,000 here. You can pay for the rest with treasures." "Sure," Luli answered coldly. Qin Guangyang made up his mind, took out a saber, threw it to Luli, and said, "This saber is a chaos spirit heaven treasure, and it is engraved with divine patterns of strength. Normally, a chaos spirit heaven treasure is worth 100,000 divine origin gold. This one is worth at least 150,000 divine origin gold." A saber? Luli's favorite weapon was a saber. He took it over with one hand, looked at it, and even swung it around. He was satisfied. The saber was cyan in color, more than 3 feet long, and it was powerful. There were cyan divine patterns on it that could enhance the saber's strength. Luli put it away after a while. He nodded and said, "This saber is not bad. I will sell it for 50,000 divine origin gold." 50,000? You might as well rob someone. Qin Guangyang was losing his patience. If this saber was put up for auction, it could be sold for 200,000 divine origin gold. If there were some wealthy customers who liked this saber, They could even sell it for 300,000 divine origin gold. But Luli said 50,000 divine origin gold? What was the difference between that and robbery? Luli sneered and said, "Don't make it sound so harsh. I don't like robbery. 50,000 it is." Yeah. Chen Guangyang and the others were speechless. What Luli was doing was no different from robbery. He was just short of stripping them naked. He took 2 deep breaths and looked at the other elder. That elder gritted his teeth and took out his battle armor, tossing it to Huang Xiaolong, and said, "1 Grand Spirit Heavenly Treasure Battle Armor, 100,000 Divine Origin Gold." 30,000. Luli threw out these words and put away the armor. For him, the armor was of little use because his defense was stronger than the primordial spirit armor. That patriarch was so angry that he almost spat out blood. Luli ignored him. He crooked his finger and said, "Go on. If you can't get 300,000 divine origin gold, you can pay with your young master's head." Crack! Luli tightened his grip. The young master's neck cracked again. The young master cried out in pain and shouted, "Take it. I will give you everything. The elixirs, materials, and treasures of my interspatial ring are worth tens of thousands of divine origin gold. You can have them all." The young master's ring was disconnected from the spiritual connection and floated in the air. Luli grabbed it and found some divine origin gold in it. There were many other materials, elixirs, and manuals. Luli did a rough calculation and said, 20,000 divine origin gold. Go on. Are you F***ing gonna take everything we have on us? Chen Guangyang and the others felt like crying. They took out all the treasures, manuals, and materials in their interspatial rings and asked Luli to make a valuation. Their valuation was useless now. Luli would give them whatever he wanted. The red-bearded old man's armor was taken off, and the spear was sent to Luli as collateral. The patriarchs and the other young masters and young ladies took out many valuable items from their interspatial rings. Only 200,000 divine origin gold in total. Are there no more treasures? Luli glanced over coldly to the 2 young ladies. With a mocking look, he said, "How about we pawn those pretty girls as well? One of them is worth 20,000 divine origin gold. How about that? I will keep them for now. You can redeem them with divine origin gold later." No. The young ladies were scared out of their wits. Pawn them with Luli? By the time the 4 Flat Island came to redeem them, they would have been ruined beyond recognition. They might as well die now. Don't go too far. Chen Guangyang was enraged. Those were the best young ladies of the 4 Flat Island. They were going to be sent to 4 Flat Island for marriage. How could Luli take their women? Luli sneered and said, "If you don't give me divine origin gold, I'll have to pawn them with pretty girls. Do as you see fit. I can kill you as easily as crushing some ants. I can kill you and take your women away." Chen Guangyang and the others were going crazy with anger. He gritted his teeth and took out a yellowing bee-skin scroll from his spatial ring and said, "This is a divine inscription diagram that this old man spent 100,000 divine origin gold to buy in the past. There are a few very profound divine inscription dojo layout diagrams on it." Chen Guangyang threw the hide scroll over. Luli took a look, nodded, and said, "This is worth some divine origin gold. Let's call it 50,000 divine origin gold. Keep looking." "I really don't have anything else." Chen Guangyang and the others looked at Luli with tears in their eyes as if their father had passed away. Luli raised his eyebrows and said, "If you don't have anything else, then write an IOU. Say that the 4 Flat Island owes 50,000 divine origin gold. The interest will be increased by 50,000 divine origin gold every year. If you don't pay it back in 100 years, you will owe me 5 million divine origin gold." Plop. Chapter 1932. It was pointless to get 70,000 or 80,000 divine origin gold. According to Patriarch Shun, it would cost at least 2 million divine origin gold to teleport to the Stormy Sea area and back. Luli got some treasures, but he couldn't sell them. He didn't want to sell the saber, either. He didn't kill anyone. He flew off the iron ship and moved on. He wouldn't kill more than 1,000 people for no reason. That was not his style. Even if he wanted to kill, he would only kill the mastermind. It was not worth it to start a feud with a middle-level force for no reason. Luli used the happy steps and moved on for more than 4 hours. He even changed his direction and found an island to rest again. He realized that the happy steps consumed a lot of spiritual energy. His soul was weak. He would be exhausted if he used the happy steps for a day and a night. Luli moved on after resting for 4 hours on the island. This time it was peaceful. Even though he ran into many warriors along the way, there was no conflict. Most of the martial artists hiding here were stragglers or scouts of some forces. They didn't have much to offer. Luli didn't want to rob them. He hurried to the Furious Island in a low-key manner. In this way, he tried to keep a low profile during the day and rushed on at full speed at night. This way, he could save a lot of time. Traveling at night wouldn't attract too much attention. One night's journey could be as long as 4 or 5 days. After 6 days of peace, Luli was not far away from the Furious Island. It would take him another 2 or 3 days to get there. That being said, it was the main battlefield where several forces were fighting to the death. Apart from the 4 alliances, many smaller forces had come here. They were here to fish in troubled waters. The 4 alliances were fighting for the Furious Island. How could the smaller forces fish in troubled waters? It was simple. Let the 4 alliances fight first. When the 4 alliances suffered heavy losses, it would be the time for the smaller forces to step in. The smaller forces would choose to join the alliance that was more powerful, help to occupy the Furious Island, and share the fruits together. Wrathflame Island was very large, and there were many spirit mountains inside. If an alliance were to conquer the island, the 3 forces could not take all of it. For example, some small mountains and some small cities could be divided. These were what the smaller forces were here for. They originally occupied very small islands without many resources and could be destroyed at any time. That being the case, it was better to attack Raging Flame Island together. As long as they obtained a spirit mountain or a city, they could develop and grow. Luli's first targets were these small forces. Since these small forces were in the vicinity, they had naturally mobilized all their forces and brought all their belongings. Once the 4 alliances were done fighting, they would choose a side to join. The place they chose to hide was very clever. It was 2 or 3 days away from Raging Flames Island. They would not attract the attention of the 4 great alliances, and they would be able to monitor the situation over there at any time so that they could make an accurate response. Luli didn't make a move right away. Instead, he lurked nearby and captured some scouts to interrogate. It only took him half a day to figure out the situation nearby. Currently, 4 alliances were fighting on Raging Flame Island. The first alliance was led by the Flying Immortal Sect, the second by the Goddess Palace, the third by the 4th level island, and the 4th by the Lunar Shadow Manor. The young master Luli encountered and Chun Guangyang were from the 4th level island. Their island owner was on the Raging Flames Island, and he was the leader of an alliance. Luli didn't plan to go to the Raging Flames Island for now, for armies were fighting there. It would be too arrogant of him to go and rob by himself. If he incurred public anger, what if the 4 armies stopped fighting and came to kill him together? Luli was ready to take action against the small forces nearby. There were islands everywhere, and many small forces were hiding on many islands. There were also some groups of bandits that specialized in robberies. After resting for half a day, Luli set out. His first target was a group of bandits, which he found out from the scouts. The number of bandits was not large, just over 100, but all of them were Second Tribulation heaven gods. The leader was at the peak of the Second Tribulation. It was said that he had powerful skills. The other patriarchs were tough. This group of bandits lived in an open manner on an island nearby. Their scouts had been checking the surroundings. They knew very well that the small forces nearby could not do anything to them. Luli flew towards the island by himself. Before he arrived, he was stopped. 2 men suddenly came out from the water and said in a vicious tone, "Get lost or die." There was nothing more to say. Luli moved closer to one of them and punched at him. That person was smashed away. The other man was enraged. But Luli turned around and moved closer at a horrifying speed. He took the man's saber strike and smashed the man away. Luli showed mercy and didn't kill anyone. That being said, the two men must have been badly injured and could barely survive. Luli dashed toward the island in a frenzy. He didn't want to launch a sneak attack. He wanted to rob by force. Bandits were professional robbers, and they were rich. Robbing them was the best way to go. Whoosh, 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 many people flew up from the island. The fight here had alarmed many. In the blink of an eye, 60 or 70 people had flown up. Luli used psychic power to check. A glint of coldness rose in his eyes. He noticed that several bandits were naked, and they were carrying naked girls in their hands. Those girls were covered with whip marks and bruises. Their eyes were lifeless, as if they were the living dead. Clearly, when the bandits were robbing, they had taken girls and committed atrocities. Judging by the mental state of those girls, it must have been hell for them during this period of time. Luli used psychic power to check the caves down there. There were bodies in some caves, all of them women. Luli could no longer hold back his killing intent. It poured out. Who are you? How dare you attack the 7 Luminaries Legion? Are you tired of living? You are alone? You are a one tribulation heaven immortal. How dare you attack the 7 Luminaries Legion? Is there something wrong with his head? Since he is courting death, then let's fulfill his wish. The group of people cursed from a distance. Luli didn't say anything. He used the happy steps and dashed toward the group of people like a ghost. He didn't want to kill before, but now he wished he could kill all the bandits. Boom, boom, boom. The 7 Luminaries Legion was powerful as a whole. All of them were second tribulation heaven gods. That being said, Luli didn't feel any pressure. With some muffled sounds, one warrior after another was smashed away. All of them died in one move. When Luli didn't hold back, average second tribulation heaven gods were puny insects to him. The dozens of roving bandits coming at Luli were average roving bandits with only 2 leaders among them. Luli was so fast that in the time for more than a dozen breaths, he had smashed away more than 20 people. All of them were killed and fell to the ground. Whoosh, 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 more people came out from the caves. Everyone in the Legion was alarmed. A middle-aged man with thick eyebrows and big eyes was as strong as a tiger. He was the most horrifying. How dare you? Chapter 1933. Zhang Tianhao still had a certain amount of fame among the small and medium-sized forces in the south. The 7 Luminaries Legion had always been small, and because of this, they were very mobile. If they could snatch something, they would snatch it. If they could not snatch something, they would run. They would often hide in some forbidden grounds, causing their pursuers to have nowhere to go. The weakest member of the 7 Planets Legion was a second tribulation. They were well trained, and their leader, Zhang Tianhao, had absolute authority. Everyone inside completely obeyed his orders. It could be said to be a very strong team. Boom, boom, boom. Luli completely ignored Zhang Tianhao and continued to attack in the crowd. Every time he punched, someone would be smashed away, and the consequence of being smashed away was death. Luli used his full strength every time, and a second tribulation divine god could not stand it. Die! A halberd appeared in Zhang Tianhao's hand. As soon as the halberd appeared, it caused the space in front of it to distort. The halberd was covered in dark red blood spots, and there were countless divine runes carved on it. One look was enough to tell that it was a very powerful weapon. He flew over like a shooting star. The warriors in front of him made way for him to attack Luli. He shook the halberd, causing the void to tremble. A world-destroying aura emanated from the halberd, and wherever the halberd passed, the space would collapse bit by bit. Rip! For the first time, Luli used a weapon. The sword that Chun Guangyang had stolen appeared in his hand, and he swung it at Zhang Tianhao. A frightening blade radiance lit up the sky. The blade radiance turned 3 times in midair and hacked toward Zhang Tianhao ruthlessly. Everyone's expressions changed. An extremely terrifying pressure pressed down on them, causing them to be unable to move wherever the blade light passed. Zhang Tianhao was under the greatest pressure. His eyes widened, and he tried his best to dodge, but the pressure was too heavy. His speed was greatly reduced, and he couldn't dodge at all. Boom! Zhang Tianhao was sent flying back, but the Grand Spirit Heavenly Artifact battle armor emerged around his body and blocked the fatal blow. But don't forget that the third slash of the Slayer Emperor's Ghost Slash was a soul attack, and a very unique soul attack, freezing the soul. Frost's sword intent. First, the frost would freeze the soul, and then the myriad of sword intents would attack the enemy's soul. Shadi's Ghost Slash was a combination of strength and soul. It was extremely overbearing. This was the first time Liu Li used the third move of the Slayer's Ghost Slash. Previously, he only used it on demons, and this was the first time he used it on humans. Liu Li was satisfied with the power. Zhang Tianhao's soul was frozen. Countless sword spirits were striking at his soul. He was smashed into the mountain and couldn't move for a while. Kill. Liu Li left Zhang Tianhao alone and went on the killing. He did not use the Ghost Slayer. Instead, he attacked with his fists, killing one warrior with each punch. The surrounding warriors were in high spirits when they saw Zhang Tianhao coming out. Now that Liu Li had smashed Zhang Tianhao away with one move, they naturally became timid and wanted to run away. There were also two elders rushing over. How could an ordinary soldier dare to escape? He could only hide in all directions. The two patriarchs were at the peak of the second tribulation as well. Once again, Liu Li used the Slayer's Ghost Slayer to target one of them. Boom! This elder also had a primordial spirit heavenly artifact, so he didn't die from the explosion. Instead, he was sent flying, and his soul was blasted into the mountain. Kill the Ghost Slayer. I have reached the third transformation, and the pressure in heaven and earth has increased. But I'm still not powerful enough. I cannot kill a warrior at the peak of the second tribulation so easily. Liu Li felt sorry. He had thought that warriors at the third transformation could threaten heaven gods of the third tribulation. It turned out that he had been overthinking. That being said, he could still defeat warriors at the peak of the second tribulation easily. Liu Li swung his saber backward and attacked another patriarch at the peak of the second tribulation. This patriarch didn't have a primordial spirit heavenly artifact armor. His body was badly mutilated and he fainted. Whoosh! Zhang Tianhao flew out. He must have dissolved the sword spirits of ice. His eyes were filled with rage. He waved his halberd and was about to release a powerful move. Liu Li would not give him a chance. He flew over like a dragon and swung his saber at Zhang Tianhao. Once again, Zhang Tianhao was smashed into the mountain. Run! This time, the remaining warriors lost the will to fight. Their patriarchs and leaders couldn't even survive one move from Liu Li. How could they fight? If they didn't run, all of them would die. How could Liu Li let them go? Seeing that they had thrown away the girls in their arms, Liu Li had no more concerns. He released the Slayer's Ghost cut one group after another and then killed them one by one. Average heaven gods of the second tribulation were weak in defense. Their bodies were weak and they didn't have primordial spirit heavenly artifact armor. How could they survive the Slayer's Ghost cut? Those warriors tried to run away, but were suppressed by the might in heaven and earth. Eventually, they were killed one by one. Whoosh, 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 Zhang Tianhao and the other two patriarchs flew out. Their eyes turned red when they saw Liu Li killing all of their warriors. This was their core. Without this group of people, the Seven Luminaries' army would probably cease to exist. Who are you? Zhang Tianhao yelled. We have no quarrel. Why are you attacking us? I don't have a name. My nickname is the Hellish Slayer. Liu Li answered coldly. As for why I want to kill you, it is because you are not pleasing to my eyes. Liu Li's original intention was to rob them. However, he realized that these warriors were inhumane. He had the urge to kill them. Just now, many interspatial rings were crushed, which was contrary to his original intention. You, Zhang Tianhao bellowed. But this time, he didn't rush forward. Instead, he flew away. At the same time, the other two patriarchs dashed toward him fearlessly, trying to stop him. Go to hell! Liu Li roared and killed a patriarch who was seriously injured. At the same time, he dashed away and kept punching at another patriarch. In an instant, Liu Li threw out hundreds of punches, and another patriarch was smashed to death. Liu Li moved quickly, put away all the interspatial rings he could see, and chased after Zhang Tianhao at the top of his speed. Most of the bandits' belongings must be with their leader. How could Lu Li let Zhang Tianhao go when this legion was so inhumane? Lu Li was fast. Even though Zhang Tianhao had a head start, Lu Li had caught up with him in the time for half an incense stick to burn. Hellish! Slayer, don't go too far. Otherwise, we will fight to the death. Zhang Tianhao shouted when he noticed that Lu Li was catching up. His shout was so loud that many people nearby were alarmed. Zhang Tianhao was well known among the small and medium-sized forces. When many people realized it was Zhang Tianhao, it caused a bigger sensation. The leader of the 7 Luminaries Legion was being hunted down, and the one who was hunting him down was a divine god of one tribulation. But this divine god of one tribulation was so fast. Could it be that he was a powerful warrior with his realm suppressed? Hellish Slayer? I have never heard of this name. Many people murmured in surprise. Anyhow, after today, the name of Hellish Slayer would be famous. It was hard for a man who could hunt down Zhang Tianhao not to be famous. Fight to the death? You can do that as well. Lu Li was wearing the ghost mask. He was filled with killing intent. After he chased after Zhang Tianhao, he swung his saber and released the Slayer's ghost cut. Many of the moves he made were his signature moves. But he couldn't worry about that now. He would be exposed sooner or later. Chapter 1934. Under the effect of the Slayer's ghost cut, Zhang Tianhao was slowed down. He was suppressed by the force in heaven and earth. Once again, Zhang Tianhao was smashed away. The frost sword intent was attacking his soul. Zhang Tianhao closed his eyes and tried his best to defend against the soul attack. Whoosh! Lu Li dashed over and put away his saber. He planned to grab Zhang Tianhao with one hand and punch him with the other. Lu Li had the spirit explosion skill. His strength could be transmitted through the primordial spirit armor. Average warriors would not be able to stand such a powerful attack. He was so fast that he reached Zhang Tianhao in the blink of an eye. When he was about to grab Zhang Tianhao, he sensed a fatal danger in his soul. Zhang Tianhao's eyes were still closed, and his breaths were steady. Clearly, he was defending against the soul attack. Lu Li wondered where the danger came from. But after years of living on the line between life and death, Lu Li came to his senses. He moved to the left. Time sped up, space twisted, and he was 300 miles away in an instant. At the same time, from Zhang Tianhao's body came out a dark shadow that covered an area with a radius of 3 miles. As Lu Li flew back, he happened to see the dark shadow retreating into Zhang Tianhao's body. Lu Li's pupils contracted, and he felt lucky. He was lucky that he didn't hesitate and he was fast. He didn't know what the dark shadow was, but it must be a powerful move. The 7 Luminaries Legion was famous at the southern region, and it deserved its reputation. Even though Zhang Tianhao was only at the peak of the second tribulation, he had his own unique skills. Lu Li didn't know what the dark shadow was, but he had a feeling that if he didn't run away, he would have died. Second Realm warriors have many tricks up their sleeves. I really cannot underestimate anyone, Lu Li exclaimed. He didn't dare to go closer to Zhang Tianhao. Lu Li planned to kill him from a distance. Every time Zhang Tianhao was injured, he could kill him sooner or later. Having made up his mind, Lu Li flew over and took out Chun Guangyang's saber. It was a primordial spirit treasure with the words 7 stars engraved on it. This saber could enhance his abilities by more than 10%. Swish! When he was close, Lu Li released the Slayer's ghost cut. A ray of sword light came out, turned 3 times in the air, and landed on Zhang Tianhao, who had just run away. Boom! Zhang Tianhao was sent flying by the explosion. He was hit repeatedly, and blood spurted out of his mouth uncontrollably. Even though he had the primordial spirit heavenly artifact battle armor, it was not omnipotent. No matter how powerful an artifact's defense was, there was still a limit to how much power it could withstand. Once the attack power exceeded this level, the warrior would not be able to withstand it. Even if the battle armor was not destroyed, the powerful force would be transmitted injuring the warrior. After the Slaughter Emperor's ghost slash reached the third revolution, its power had increased significantly. The Grand Spirit Heavenly Artifact was no longer able to withstand it completely. A portion of its power would be transmitted into the ghost slash, injuring the enemy. More importantly, the third slash of the Slayer Emperor ghost slash was a soul attack. The Ice Frost Sword was very strong, and every time it was used, it would freeze the soul, making it impossible for the soul to control the body. Although the thousands of swords couldn't cause too much damage to Zhang Tianhao's soul, every time his soul was frozen, he needed time to dissolve it. Rip! When Zhang Tianhao finally came to his senses, Lu Li's sword light came again, and his soul was frozen again. He groaned inwardly. If this went on, he would be hacked to death. He had to think of a way. Hell-killing god, stop! He roared as soon as he woke up. However, Lu Li had already taken action. Zhang Tianhao was smashed away for dozens of miles, and his soul was frozen again. Stop! I have something to say. Zhang Tianhao shouted again when he came to his senses. Then he was smashed away and his soul was frozen again. However, when he came to his senses again, he noticed that Lu Li had stopped attacking and was floating 30 miles above his head. Hell-killing god, we can talk. This was a rare opportunity. Zhang Tianhao said in a hurry. Are you trying to kill me because of hatred? Or was there another reason? No hatred, Lu Li replied indifferently. I just don't like the sight of you. Say your last words. We didn't do anything against nature and reason. Zhang Tianhao was frustrated. Remembering the women they robbed, he changed his tone. Those women are not civilians. They are the women of an enemy force. I didn't agree to their robbery. But we are roving bandits. We live in a storm of blood every day. If we don't give them a chance to vent, they will lose their minds. Lu Li's expression was cold. His eyes did not change. With the ghost mask on, he looked like a killing god. After a moment of silence, he said, Is that all you want to say? If you're done, I will make my move. Don't. Zhang Tianhao wiped the blood off the corner of his mouth, got down on one knee in midair and said, Lord, as long as you don't kill me, I will do anything you want. Lord, please let me go. The fight here alerted many scouts nearby. The islands nearby were all small and medium-sized forces. Hundreds of scouts dived over from the water. They didn't dare to get too close, so they couldn't hear the conversation between Lu Li and Zhang Tianhao. Zhang Tianhao knelt down in midair, but people could see it clearly from the distance. Everyone was shocked. Where did this hell-killing god come from? He was so fierce that Zhang Tianhao had to kneel down and beg for mercy. A man should kneel down. Zhang Tianhao was a famous bandit in the southern region. How could he kneel down? What did this mean? It meant that Zhang Tianhao was no match for the hell-killing god. He had to kneel down and beg for mercy in order to live. Spineless, Lu Li said indifferently. He thought about it and said, You can use your treasures and divine origin gold to buy your life. If I am satisfied, I will spare your worthless life. Lu Li didn't forget the purpose of this trip. He had to get the divine origin gold and treasures first. Zhang Tianhao was excited. As long as he could keep his life, why would he need the divine origin gold and treasures? Even if he was killed, it would still be Lu Li's. Wait. Soon, he realized something was wrong. Lu Li said he would be satisfied. If he was not, he wouldn't be able to live even if he handed over the divine origin gold and treasures. Zhang Tianhao's eyes flickered. He took out a package from his interspatial ring, threw it to Lu Li, and said, Lord, this is all the divine origin gold I have accumulated over the years. It is all in here. I will give it all to you. The package was an interspatial artifact. Lu Li took it over and took a look. Soon, he said coldly, Do you think I'm an idiot? You are the leader of a bandit group. You only have 150,000 divine origin gold. If you want to die, I will grant your wish. Lord, let me explain. Seeing that Lu Li was about to turn hostile, Zhang Tianhao cupped his fists and said, Lord, in this fight for the Heavenly Island, we are planning to do something big. Therefore, we have spent a lot of divine origin gold on armors and weapons. We have spent hundreds of thousands of divine origin gold on weapons for our subordinates. As you can see, many of my subordinates have divine rune weapons. Let them increase their abilities so that we can have a better chance of looting. Luli used psychic power to check his interspatial ring. He had killed all the warriors of the 7 Luminaries Legion and put away their weapons. He took a look and found that many armors and weapons did have divine runes. Chapter 1935. Luli was overbearing. Zhang Tianhao had no other choice. He took out a yellowed book from his interspatial ring and a bow. He handed it over and said, "Lord, this is a skill from the Archean Age. It is priceless. This bow is a primordial treasure with 36 divine patterns on it. It is worth hundreds of thousands of divine origin gold. If these cannot buy my life, then there is nothing I can do." Luli took over the book. It was all written in tadpole language. He could not read a single word. That being said, the book must be old. It cannot be faked. Luli could see some divine patterns on the book. If it were not for the divine patterns, the book would have been destroyed. Whatever it was, Luli decided to put away first. He looked at the bow. The bow was clearly a primordial treasure. It was exquisite, surrounded by a purple aura and covered with divine patterns. It must be a piece of treasure. That's all. Luli turned to Zhang Tianhao, who looked like he was about to cry. His ring glowed as piles of materials, weapons, armors, skills, and so on floated in the air. Zhang Tianhao said, "Lord, all my treasures are here. Take whatever you like." Zhang Tianhao said. Swish, swish, Luli generated a hand of void and grabbed all the materials and treasures. He put them away without even looking at them. Turning to Zhang Tianhao, Luli said, "Remove the spiritual connection and throw the interspatial ring over. You can keep your armor." Lord, Zhang Tianhao wanted to die. Luli was taking everything for granted. Apart from the armor, Luli didn't plan to leave anything for him. The saber in Li's hand glowed. He said coldly, "What are you talking about? When I kill you, all your treasures will be mine. Are you going to give them to me or not? Just say the word." Buzzing, Zhang Tianhao removed the spiritual connection and threw the ring to Luli reluctantly. Luli took a look and saw some treasures, skills, and top-level materials. Zhang Tianhao had kept some to himself. Okay, Luli put away the ring. Just when Zhang Tianhao thought he was going to let him go, Luli continued, "Now, take me to the place where you hid your treasures. Give me your treasures, and I will spare your life." Zhang Tianhao's expression changed. He didn't expect Luli to have such a big appetite. He hurriedly waved his hand and said, "There are no hidden treasures, my lord. All the treasures are with us. We've given them all to you." "Hee, you are insulting my intelligence again." Luli sneered. The reason why he didn't kill Zhang Tianhao right away was for the treasure. Otherwise, if he killed Zhang Tianhao, he would still be able to obtain all the treasures on him. Why would he waste his breath here? A cunning rabbit has 3 burrows. He didn't believe that the bandits would bring all the hidden treasures with them. If they encountered a powerhouse, wouldn't they be stewed in a pot? The leader and the elders would definitely discuss and place most of the treasures in a safe place. If something were to happen, the remaining people could use these treasures to continue recruiting and building up their forces. Luli needed 2 million divine origin gold this time. He only got 150,000 divine origin gold after robbing a group of roving bandits. Naturally, he would not be satisfied. Seeing that Zhang Tianhao was still crying and howling, he swung the saber in his hand down ferociously. A shocking saber radiance turned 3 times and blasted Zhang Tianhao away. This time, Luli didn't give Zhang Tianhao a chance to speak. He attacked continuously. Every time Zhang Tianhao came to his senses, he would be blasted away. More and more blood gushed out from his mouth, and he looked worse and worse. Hiss, hiss, the scouts hiding nearby were all shocked. How could this one tribulation divine god be so ferocious in his attacks? Also, this man's attacks were so strange. The saber radiance turned 3 times in midair. Every time it turned, people would feel nervous and uncomfortable. Is he a young master of top force? Maybe he came from the third heaven. Otherwise, how could a one tribulation divine god have such lethality? He might be a disciple of one of those ancient families in the third heaven. I heard that some disciples of ancient families in the third heaven are born with the combat ability of a second tribulation divine god. Yes, I heard that too. It is said that there is a thunder race in the third heaven. Their disciples can control thunderbolts and kill a second tribulation divine god as soon as they are born. Well, the hell-killing god. Clearly, he doesn't want to reveal his real name. He is so young. He must be a disciple of a big family in the third heaven. Many scouts gathered around, and they gathered together to discuss. The main point was that Lu Li's realm was too low, but he could hurt a warrior at the peak of the second tribulation divine god. This surprised them. Stop it. Lu Li had attacked for hundreds of times. Zhang Tianhao felt his internal organs were shattered and his head was cracked. Seizing a chance, Zhang Tianhao shouted, "Stop it! I will take you there." Lu Li stopped. He had enough. If he went any further, he might die. Lu Li flew over and stood 30 miles away from Zhang Tianhao. He said, "Where is it? Don't lie to me. You only have one chance. If I find out that you are lying to me, you will die." No. Zhang Tianhao cupped his fists and begged for mercy. Then he said, "It is in a cave under the sea near Seven Luminaries Island." Seven Luminaries Island? Lu Li took out the map and looked awful. Seven Luminaries Island was at the southernmost part, far away from here. Even if he were to fly there at full speed, it would take him more than half a month. A round trip would take 2 months. Lu Li asked with uncertainty, "Is it the Seven Luminaries Island near the Paradise Island?" "Yes, it is." Zhang Tianhao nodded and said, "That is our base. Many people know about it. We are on good terms with the owner of the Paradise Island. Every year, we hand in some divine origin gold, and they will protect us secretly. Also, there are some maze formations in the sea over there. It is very suitable for us to sneak away." "Too far," Lu Li sighed. "Normally, it would be okay. It would be worthwhile to spend 2 months to get a big treasure. But now he was running out of time. He had to get back to the Omen Island in 2.5 years. Who knew what could happen on the way? He could not afford to waste time. "How dare you lie to me?" Lu Li wanted to trick Zhang Tianhao, so he shouted angrily and continued to attack. This time, he attacked Zhang Tianhao for more than 100 times. Only when Zhang Tianhao was on the verge of death did Lu Li stop and say, "I will give you one last chance. Tell me the location of your treasure." "It is really at the Seven Luminaries Island." Zhang Tianhao was half dead. He said with a sad face, "Lord, I can swear an almighty blood oath that if it is not at the sea 30,000 miles to the south of the Seven Luminaries Island, my entire family will die a horrible death." "So you are not lying." Lu Li was disappointed. He thought of something and said, "What is that black shadow that came out of your body? Give it to me." Well, Zhang Tianhao stammered. Lu Li didn't want to waste more time. He attacked continuously. After the time for one incense stick to burn, Zhang Tianhao's head was smashed and he was killed. Lu Li would not show any mercy to roving bandits. If he let Zhang Tianhao go, there would be a new Seven Luminaries Legion in the future. More people would be robbed, tortured to death, and more women would be raped. Buzzing, Zhang Tianhao's armor came off automatically. A hidden interspatial artifact flew out as well. There was also a blood-red bead floating in midair. Bead. Chapter 1936. Lu Li approached it slowly, fearing that another shadow would come out and devour him. As he approached, he didn't sense any fatal danger. He was a bit relieved. He put away the armor and then grabbed the interspatial artifact. He used psychic power to check and found many top-level materials and rare elixirs. In the end, he looked at the bead. He used psychic power to check, but didn't find anything special about it. There were many tiny divine patterns on the bead. Clearly, the bead had been refined many times, and there were many divine patterns on it. This must be a piece of treasure. There were 36 divine patterns on the bow, but they were nothing compared to this bead. Luli could tell there were at least hundreds of divine patterns on the bead. He reached out a hand and grabbed the bead. It was cold in his hand, as if he was holding a piece of precious jade, heavy. Apart from that, there was nothing special about it. Luli tried to pour divine energy into it, but nothing happened. I will put it away and find a place to refine it. Luli thought for a while and put away the bead. Then he vanished into the distance. So fast. When the scouts realized that Luli had disappeared in an instant, they were all speechless. They looked at Zhang Tianhao's body, floating on the sea for a while, and then left quietly. They must bring this information back to avoid conflicts between their own forces and this man. Many people would look down on a one-tribulation heaven god. Messing with this man would bring endless disasters to their forces. Luli flew for thousands of miles and then found a place to hide. When it was getting dark, he pressed on. 2 hours later, he found a deserted island to hide on. He took out the bead again. Zhang Tianhao had many treasures on him, but Luli didn't like the others. He didn't need armor, and he had the 7-star saber from Chun Guangyang as a weapon. He didn't need divine materials, and he had enough elixirs. Regular skills were pointless for him. A dark shadow came out from Zhang Tianhao's body and almost killed him. It might be because of this bead. Therefore, Luli was interested and he wanted to consume the bead at once. He poured his divine power into it and refined it for a long time, but there was no reaction. He tried other methods, but after a long time, there was no effect at all. What is going on? Luli did not understand. The bead was clearly a treasure. Why couldn't he control it? Zhang Tianhao was already dead, so there shouldn't be his spiritual imprint on it anymore. It should be very easy to refine. Divine imprints? Luli stared at the divine glyphs. An idea came to him. He sent a message to Blood Fairy. Blood Fairy, how is your study of divine glyphs? Back on the Demon Mountain, Blood Fairy had inscribed many divine inscriptions and had been trying to comprehend them. The divine inscriptions on the Demon Mountain were simply too complicated. Most probably, Blood Fairy wouldn't be able to comprehend them all within a short period of time. There's a divine inscription dojo. I should be able to set it up. The divine inscription dojo, Blood Fairy replied. I've finished studying it. I think I can set it up now. That prison's divine inscription is too complicated. I reckon I'll need a long time to comprehend it. Oh, Luli was surprised and then overjoyed. He did not know that Blood Fairy could learn divine inscriptions so quickly. If he could set up that divine inscriptions Tao field, he would be able to seal the divine energy of a third tribulation heavenly deity. If that was the case, he would be able to easily kill a third tribulation heavenly deity. Physical strength? Many third tribulation heavenly deity were no match for him. Once he could not use divine energy, he would not be able to use many skills and fundamental principles. He wondered if Blood Fairy's divine inscription dojo could suppress a third tribulation heavenly deity. Take a look at this bead. There are complicated divine inscriptions on it. Don't touch it. I think there might be a powerful demon sealed in there. Luli threw the bead into the mountain and told Blood Fairy to check. He used psychic power to check. If something went wrong, he could send the bead out in time. A tentacle reached out from the god's corpse and wrapped around the orb. Not long after, Blood Fairy's voice rang in his mind. Master, the runes on this orb are very powerful. They are many times more complicated than the runes in the Demon Palace. It really is a treasure. Luli nodded. Blood Fairy went on. This time, after a whole day, she said, Master, there's indeed a powerful being sealed in there. It seems to be a demon or a remnant soul at the same time. But the divine inscription on the bead can contain it and control its attacks. When you can control the divine inscription, you'll be able to control the bead and the demon. Okay, Luli was cheered up. Everything was as he had guessed. The bead was a treasure with a powerful demon sealed in it. If he had not retreated fast enough, he would have been killed by the demon. Can you control the divine inscription? Luli asked with concern. Controlling the divine inscription would mean controlling the powerful demon. Luli would have another way to protect himself and his enemies. I don't know, Blood Fairy replied. I need time. Let me try first. If I am fast, I might be able to control it in a month. If I'm slow, it might take decades. I'm not familiar with divine inscriptions yet. Buzzing, Luli took out the bow and all the treasures with divine inscriptions and put them all into the mountain. The weapons and armors all have divine inscriptions. Study them. They might be useful to you. Okay. Blood Fairy said nothing and began to study the divine inscription on the bead. Luli began to cultivate and rest as well. He planned to lie low for a few days to let the news die down. He must be at the forefront of the storm. Luli was right. The news that a mysterious, powerful warrior with a nickname of Hell Killer had single-handedly wiped out the 7 Luminaries' Legion and killed Zhang Tianhao and all the others had spread around. Even the alliances at the Furious Island knew about it. The fact that Lu Li's realm and age were too low was the reason why the news could spread so fast. His strength and speed, on the other hand, were unbelievably strong. Such a contrast could easily arouse people's suspicions. In addition, the fact that Chun Zihao, the only son of Chun Tianfang, the island owner of the Four-Piece Island, was robbed by the Hellish Killer. The name Hellish Killer was well known in an area with a radius of millions of miles. Chun Tianfang was the alliance master of an alliance. To think that the hell-killing god would dare to snatch away his only son. This man was truly audacious. That being said, Chun Tianfang and the Four-Piece Island did not take any action. Fighting for the Furious Island was the priority. Luli could go after Chun Tianfang later. Chun Tianfang was not an idiot. As long as Chun Zihao was alive, it was not worth the effort. The ray of sword light changed 3 times. On a small island, 2 scouts learned the news. A glint of coldness rose in their eyes. One of them said in surprise, "Is it the Slayer's ghost cut? Such a strange move. It is unique." "It is possible," the other scout nodded. "It is a chaotic area. How can a young master from a major family come here? The Slayer's ghost cut is so strange. Who else can do it apart from Luli? Let's not report this to Patriarch Yin Hong yet." One of the scouts said, "Let's observe for a while longer. If he releases worms of the void, mountain, or immortal's body, then it will be Luli. We will report this to Patriarch Yin and ask the Hall to send powerful warriors to kill him." Chapter 1937. Luli stayed on the island for 3 to 4 days. Then, he went out to interrogate 2 scouts. He learned that he had caused quite a stir. Many speculated that he was a disciple of an ancient family from the 3rd heaven. Others speculated that he was a descendant of a hidden tyrant of the 2nd heaven. But nobody suspected that he was Luli. Luli was relieved. Based on the scout's understanding, he had 3 targets, all of which were bands of bandits. 2 bands of bandits were as famous as the 7 Luminaries' Legion. The leaders of the 3 bands were all at the peak of the 2nd tribulation. As a matter of fact, there was another band of bandits that was active nearby. But Luli did not dare to make a move because the leader of that band was a god of 3 tribulations. Luli was fast, and he was not afraid of a god of 3 tribulations. That being said, he decided to be careful and try not to run into one. If something went wrong, he would be doomed eternally. Luli took action. Taking advantage of the darkness, he flew toward the base of a band of bandits nearby. Bands of bandits specialized in looting. They had no humanity and committed heinous crimes. Luli wouldn't feel guilty even if he killed them. The base of that band was not on the island, but under the sea. It was said that it was in a cave. Based on the information provided by the scouts, Luli flew for most of the night and found the area at dawn. He flew around a nearby island. Making sure that this was the place, Luli went into the sea quietly. He concealed his chi and energy and slowed down. He used the trace of the Great Path to increase his senses. He could sense the surroundings. There were beasts of primordial chaos in the sea, but not powerful ones. There were many battles nearby. Many warriors had gathered. The powerful beasts of primordial chaos were intelligent. They knew to seek fortune and avoid danger. They had run away. Whoosh, whoosh, some beasts of primordial chaos were coming. Luli didn't want to attract too much attention. He released the dark golden worms of the void. He didn't use too many, just a few. The dark golden worms of the void had gone over. Those beasts of primordial chaos had no time to fight back. They were bitten into bones in an instant. Blood dyed the area red. Luli sped up. The blood would attract more beasts of primordial chaos. He snuck down along the island. However, dozens of miles later, many beasts of primordial chaos swarmed over. Buzzing, Luli had to send out more worms of the void. One by one, the dark golden worms of the void swarmed over. All the beasts of primordial chaos that came close were reduced to bones in an instant. The dark golden worms of the void were too strong. Suddenly, Luli sensed something strange. There was a ripple of water, and it was moving deeper into the lake. Low-grade chaos beasts did not have spiritual intelligence and did not know fear. That was why they would not run away. There was a creature moving downwards. It was definitely a person. It was very likely that it was a scout from that army. Whoosh, Luli sped up to the extreme. In a blink, he had covered dozens of miles. His psychic power was locked on to one person. Clearly, this person was a scout. He reacted quickly when he sensed Luli was approaching. Instead of attacking, the scout took out a ball-shaped object and poured divine energy into it. The ball-shaped object glowed. Luli snorted. The dark golden worms of the void swarmed out from the mountain and swarmed into the man's body. The man's head was bitten off at a speed visible to the naked eye. The iron ball in his hand dimmed down as well. Luli reached out and took the ball. He glanced at it and found that it really was a signal flare. This scout wanted to use this signal flare to warn his people, but the dark gold void worm was too fast. He didn't have time to detonate it. Here it is. Luli nodded. The information was correct. Down below should be the temporary stronghold of this ghost slayer group of roving bandits. Luli released more worms of the void to kill the beasts of primordial chaos coming from all directions. Then he rushed down, found it. A moment later, he discovered a few scouts, as well as a pitch-black cave entrance. Outside the cave entrance, there was a divine inscriptions dojo, isolating it from the seawater. Who is it? Several scouts unsheathed their weapons. Luli was wearing the ghost mask, so it was hard to see his face. His eyes were emotionless as he said, "I am here under orders to see Lord Ghost and talk about cooperation." Under orders? The scout did not let his guard down. He asked, "Whose orders are you here under? What kind of cooperation?" Luli was intrigued. "I am here under orders from my island owner. My island owner is Chun Tianfong. Have you heard of him? Chun Tianfong? From the Four Flat Island?" The scouts let their guard down a bit. Still, one of them said, "Stand still. Take out your ID token. I have seen the token of the Four Flat Island." "Okay, catch it." Luli grabbed at the mountain, pretending to grab something. In fact, it was dozens of worms of the void. He threw them over, and they flew away. What? Wait, out of instinct, that scout tried to grab them. However, when he checked with psychic power, he realized that they were worms. He wanted to yell at the scouts, but they were so close. The worms of the void dashed into the scouts' bodies. They were reduced to a mist of blood and eaten up. Luli did not go into the cave rashly. Instead, he said to Blood Fairy, there are divine glyphs where I am. Take a look and see if they are impressive." Some divine inscriptions were naturally formed by the heaven and earth and were inscribed by experts. The other type was formed after many experts comprehended the laws of heaven and earth and transformed it. Divine glyphs were the embodiment of laws in nature. They could evolve into many skills and moves. After what happened in the dungeon of the Palace of Demons, Luli was very careful about places with divine glyphs. One careless move, and he could be trapped to death. Blood Fairy reached out her tentacle to check the divine glyphs at the cave entrance. A moment later, she retracted her tentacle and said, "These are simple divine glyphs. They are not offensive." Blood Fairy might not be the best when it came to divine glyphs, but she could not be wrong about something like this. Luli took out the 7-star saber and was ready to dash in. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Before he could go in, he heard many noises coming from the cave. Following that, many people came out. In the time for a few breaths, hundreds had come out. The Ghost Hunter had more members than the 7 Luminaries Legion. There were over 1,000 of them. Inevitably, the number was uneven. Luli could even see that many of them were at the first tribulation. A group of people rushed out and immediately surrounded Luli. Luli must have alarmed the band of roving bandits when he killed those few people. Luli stood in the middle, allowing the bandits to surround him. He used psychic power to check the cave, waiting for the leader to come out. Who dares to stir up trouble in the Ghost Hunter? A bell-like voice came out. Following that, a tall and strong man with red hair and a huge axe on his back came out with a group of warriors. This man had horns on his head. He did not seem to be a pure-blooded human. What? Chapter 1938. When it came to intelligence, the bandits were better than any other force. They often had to rob others, and they had to be on guard against revenge. If they didn't have good intelligence, they would have been destroyed a long time ago. Luli was fast and didn't make too much noise. Even so, the bandits were alarmed because they had some special means to detect what was going on outside. Hell Killer. The more than 1,000 people around Luli were shocked. They had just received news about Luli not long ago. Now, Luli had come to them. They knew very well that the 7 Luminaries Legion was not weaker than them. Zhang Tianhao, in particular, was a famous powerful warrior. He was at the First Tribulation Realm, young and wearing a ghost mask. Everything made sense. The bandits became solemn. One would not come to a temple without a cause. It seemed that a bloody battle was inevitable. Many of them might die today. Luli stood in the middle by himself with the 7-star saber in his hand. He was calm and composed. He didn't reply in a hurry, which put a lot of pressure on the bandits. After a while, he said, "Yes, it is me." The red-haired, bullhorn warrior's eyes flickered. He put away his weapon, cupped his fists, and said, "I am Killer Ghost of the Ghost Killer Corps. What can I do for you?" Killer Ghost used the word order and put away his weapon. He was scared. Luli's henchmen lowered their weapons and didn't dare to point at Luli anymore. Luli's reputation was so great that even the rebellious roving bandits were terrified. If he could get what he wanted without fighting, Luli wouldn't waste his time. He said coldly, "I don't have any orders. I am in need of divine origin gold. I heard that you are professional robbers and you must be rich. So I want to rob you." Luli's honesty made the bandits speechless. Usually, they were the ones robbing others. Who would rob them? Luli came here alone and made it clear that he was going to rob them. How could they accept this? Ha ha ha. Guisha laughed and said with a look of agreement, I understand. Who doesn't need money in the pugilistic world? Hell's Grim Reaper, just tell us how much divine origin metal you need. We brothers will sell everything we have to get it for you." Ghost Killer's sincerity once again made the bandits speechless. If they didn't know better, they would have thought that Ghost Killer was Luli's friend and that Ghost Killer was generously helping Luli. Not much. Luli didn't want to make things difficult for Killer of Guisha since he was so understanding. He reached out one finger. Killer of Guisha laughed again. He waved his hand and said, 10,000 pieces of divine origin gold? No problem. Do you think I'm a beggar? Luli sneered. Shah's expressions changed. He made up his mind and said, Do you want 100,000? This. All right, let's think of a way to scrape together. No. Luli shook his finger and said, You are mistaken. I want 1,000,000 pieces of divine origin gold. Take the divine origin gold and leave. I won't rob you guys in the future. 1,000,000? The group could not help but shout in surprise. Luli was demanding an exorbitant price. 1,000,000 pieces of divine origin gold would pile up like a small mountain. Even a small force could not accumulate so much divine origin gold for 100 years. You are making things difficult for us. Killer of Gish's expressions changed as well. He said in a wrong tone, Even if you cut us into pieces, we can't give you that much. We are just a small legion of roving bandits, and we only have small-scale activities. We have so many brothers to eat, drink, and cultivate. Where can we get so much divine origin gold? If you want 100 or 200,000 pieces of divine origin gold, we can scrape together. But if you want 1 million, we really cannot afford that. Cut the crap. Luli was in no mood to argue with them. He said coldly, if you cannot afford it, then you will pay with your lives. 1,000 pieces of divine origin gold for each of you. 1 million pieces of divine origin gold for the 1,000 of you. Some of the roving bandits were filled with killing intent. They were all tough bandits. They bullied the weak and feared the strong, but at the critical moment, they would let loose their bandit nature. They would be willing to sacrifice anything to bring the king down. If Luli pushed them too far, they would have to fight with their lives. How about this? Killer of Gish's eyes flickered. He made up his mind and said, I have a piece of treasure with an extraordinary background. It is worth at least 1 million pieces of divine origin gold. I am too weak to use its power. I will have to give it to you. I hope you can spare our lives. Brother, a powerful warrior of the second tribulation grabbed Killer of Gish's arm and said, You cannot give it to us. You risked your life to get it. Right. Another one said angrily, Brother, we will fight him. That treasure cannot be given. Shut up, Killer of Guisha said with determination. Is the treasure more important, our brothers or our lives? Luli didn't answer. He looked at them coldly. Killer of Guisha turned to Luli, cupped his fists and said, Lord, can I? Take it out and let me see. Luli said casually. He used psychic power to look at Killer of Guisha, who took out a black stamp from his ring. That seal was densely packed with divine inscriptions, and it was actually not inferior to the divine inscriptions on the blood-red bead that he had obtained previously. It looked simple and majestic, and it was extremely profound. Lord, take a look. This is the treasure I got from the tomb of the ancient Saint Emperor. Killer of Guisha said reluctantly. Then, he threw the stamp to Luli. Luli moved at this moment. He didn't try to grab the stamp. Instead, he stepped back for more than 30 miles in an instant. Boom! The stamp suddenly exploded. A surge of air swept across. The seawater nearby evaporated and a vacuum appeared. All the warriors around Luli were smashed away. Many were killed and most were wounded. Killer of Guisha and the others ran into the cave at once, so they didn't suffer serious injuries. This man is cruel. Luli looked around. At least 200 or 300 warriors were killed, and the rest were badly injured. His eyes grew colder. He had heard about the cruelty and cunning of the bandits. This was the first time he had seen it for himself. Killer of Gish's acting was too exaggerated. He didn't have the temperament of a bandit army at all. What was more, the 2 warriors of the second tribulation were too involved in the act. What Killer of Guisha said made Luli certain that the stamp was a trap. Ancient Saint Emperors. Luli knew about this. Ancient Saint Emperors were the most powerful warriors in the third heaven. The tombs of ancient Saint Emperors were usually at the third heaven or in mysterious small worlds. How could Killer of Guisha go to the third heaven? How could he go to the tombs of ancient Saint Emperors? Charge! There was nothing more to say. Luli released the worms of the void to eat all the bandits nearby first. Now that he had made up his mind, Luli didn't want any information to leak out. He wanted to kill everyone. Chapter 1939. Luli dashed into the cave and used psychic power to check. Soon, he was taken aback. There was a teleportation formation at the end of the cave. The 5 had disappeared and the teleportation formation had been destroyed. Killer of Guisha seemed to be well built, but he was so cunning. He had prepared a backup plan. Luli wondered where he had been teleported to. Luli dashed in to check the teleportation formation after some thoughts. Luli was one of the best when it came to teleportation formations. Soon, he was sure that this was a short distance, one-way teleportation formation. He also had a general idea of where he would be teleported to. Move! Luli took out his weapon and dashed toward the west. He used the 7 Stars Island to cut out a path in the mountain and dash forward. At the same time, he used the trace of Great Path to sense the surroundings. In the time for 1 incense stick to burn, Luli had covered thousands of miles. He ran into many beasts of primordial chaos, but he did not go on a killing spree. The beasts of primordial chaos could not catch up with him. There is a smell of humans. There are beasts of primordial chaos killed. Luli suddenly stopped. The trace of great path he used was so sensitive that he could sense some traces of humans. There were 3 beasts of primordial chaos nearby, all killed in one move. Okay, Luli was excited to go after them. After the time for half an incense stick to burn, he sensed some movement in the water up ahead. It was not the movement of beasts of primordial chaos because the movement was fast. Go after them. Luli took several steps forward. Several people appeared in the range of psychic power. The one at the front was tall and strong, with 2 horns. Who else could it be but Killer of Guisha? Killer of Guisha and the others sensed the movement as well. They looked back at once. When they saw Luli dashing toward them, they were taken aback. Luli was so fast that they could not run unless they split up. But could they really run away by splitting up? Given Luli's speed, he could catch up with them and kill them one by one. Killer of Gisha's eyes glinted with ferocity. He stopped and said, "Don't run. Let's put up a desperate fight. If the Hell Killer wants to kill us, we will drag him down with us." The other 4 spread out and stood in a fan shape. They took out their weapons and were ready to fight. Guisha held his battle axe in one hand and another seal in the other. His eyes were cold and bloodthirsty, like a crazed lion. Luli stopped when he was 3 miles away from them. He looked at Shah the Ghost with disdain and said, "Shah the Ghost, you are so cruel. So many of your men were killed by you. You're a good boss." He. Guisha smiled and said disapprovingly, "What are those people? As long as we 5 brothers are here, we can form a team at any time. Death God of Hell, you don't have to drive a wedge between us. We 5 brothers have experienced countless life and death situations. How can our relationship be driven apart by just a few words from you?" Buzz. Luli wasted no more time. The mountain released many worms of the void. Most of them were golden in color. Thousands of dark golden worms of the void were hiding among the golden ones. He released 100 billion insects in one go, then waved his hand and said, "If you can resist my insects, I can consider letting you live." Swish! The worms of the void whooshed on. Luli slowed down the dark golden worms of the void so that they wouldn't stand out. Shah the Ghost and the others were hesitating. Out of instinct, they sensed the danger. Those worms could be fatal. The problem was, how could they run? Where could they run to? Luli was fast. They could not run away. Luli's words gave them a glimmer of hope. They began to attack. Those were just some worms. They could kill them easily. After releasing a round of attacks, everyone's expressions changed greatly because the void worm suddenly became incorporeal and their attacks flashed past. Many changed their attacks at once. Some even released flames, tried to see if the flames could burn the worms to death. However, it didn't work. Only Shah the Ghost managed to kill some golden worms of the void. By the time they thought of a 3rd round of attacks, it was too late. The worms of the void had passed. Luli sped up all the dark golden worms of the void. Many worms of the void dashed into the 5 warriors. The fight was over. Luli shrugged. He didn't have to do anything, did he? Wouldn't the dark golden worms of the void be too much for a second tribulation heaven god? Even if the 5 had some tricks up their sleeves, their abilities would be reduced. As he expected, one of the warriors cried out in pain and rolled around in the ocean. The others closed their eyes and tried to find a way to stop the worms of the void. Another one soon began to roll around in pain. Only 3 of them could stand it. Buzzing, the horn on Shah the Ghost's head glowed. Streaks of dark energy entered his body. Luli sensed through the worms of the void that the dark energy could suppress the dark golden worms of the void. Impressive. The leader of a group of roving bandits was not an average person. No leader of any force could be underestimated. Luli didn't rush over rashly. Instead, he sent more worms of the void into Shah the Ghost. Soon, the 2 warriors who were rolling around were eaten. Luli sent the dark golden worms of the void into the bodies of the other warriors. Apart from Shah the Ghost, The other two could not stand it any longer. I will fight you to the death. One of the warriors felt he could no longer suppress the worms of the void. He shouted with a twisted face. He dashed over like an arrow and stabbed at Lu Li with his spear. Piss off. Lu Li swung his 7-star saber. A ray of sword light came out. Lu Li made 3 turns in the air and landed on the warrior. The warrior was smashed away. His wounds were worsened. He could no longer stop the worms of the void. His head was bitten off. Fight! Sha the ghost made up his mind. He shouted with the other warrior, and they dashed toward Lu Li from the left and the right. The seals in Sha the ghost's hands glowed, and so did the horns on his head. Madness was written all over his face. He was ready to fight Lu Li. Lu Li turned to the left and stepped forward. Time sped up and space trembled. He vanished into the ocean and reappeared thousands of miles away. Then he wandered around, not staying close to Sha the ghost and the other warrior. They might be able to suppress the worms of the void for a while, but could they do it forever? The other warrior was gnawed to death by the worms of the void as well. Sha the ghost was the only one left in the Ghost Legion. Sha the ghost stared at the 4 warriors that had been gnawed into bones. His eyes were filled with despair. Lu Li was so fast that Sha the ghost could not run away. He would end up like his 4 brothers. Plop! Sha the ghost dropped to his knees and said to Lu Li, God of massacre, spare my life. I will surrender to you for 1,000 years. I will follow you around and be your slave. No need. Chapter 1940. Lu Li had made it clear that he didn't want soul slaves, which meant he was going to kill Guei Sha. Gish's eyes were filled with killing intent. There was nothing more to say. He had to fight with all his might. He didn't make a move right away because Lu Li was too fast for him to get close. His eyes flickered. Suppressing his anger, Lu Li raised the hand seal and said, Hell Killer, I have a secret skill. This is the seal. I cannot make it to its peak state yet. If you can learn it, you can make it, and you can kill an average 3 tribulation heaven god. Oh, Lu Li seemed to be smiling. He reached out his hand and said, Let me see. If it is powerful, I will think about it. Don't think I am an idiot. Guei Sha sneered. I would rather destroy this skill if I can't keep myself alive. Then destroy it. Lu Li waved his hand casually and said, This seal is too obvious. Even warriors at the peak of the 2nd tribulation can sense it and run away, not to mention 3 tribulation heaven gods. What is the use of it? That is because I haven't fully understood the patterns in it. I cannot build some of them. Guei Sha explained, I cannot build the 3 most important ones. Otherwise, you wouldn't have sensed it and you would have been killed. Make an almighty oath. As long as you don't kill me, I will give you the skill. I can make an almighty oath. Lu Li said casually, but you have to pay with divine origin gold for your life. 1 million divine origin gold and the skill, and I can spare your life. 1 million? Gish's eyes turned red. He shouted coldly, Hell Killer, you have crossed the line. I don't even have 500,000 divine origin gold, let alone 1 million. Then go to hell. Lu Li made a move. He hacked at the 7-star saber. The ray of sword light stirred up the seawater around. The ray of sword light twisted in midair, causing the seawater to tumble. Guei Sha tried to run away, but he was slowed down. In the end, he was hit by the ray of sword light. Guei Sha could not kill Guei Sha because he had the primordial spirit armor. That being said, the move messed up the energy in Gish's body. He could no longer control the worms of the void. Guei Sha screamed miserably. The weakest organs in his body had been bitten off. His entire body was in so much pain that he was trembling. In the face of a life-and-death crisis, he reacted very quickly. His horns lit up, and streams of black energy entered his body, suppressing the void worm once again. When he was about to run away, he suddenly realized that Lu Li's attack contained a soul attack. His soul was frozen for a moment. Tens of thousands of sword wills surged over, like tens of thousands of needles, stabbing over from all directions. He had just resolved the soul attack when Lu Li's second ghost slash came. Once again, Luli was blasted away and the energy in his body was disrupted. Then, to his horror, he discovered that his lower abdomen had been completely eaten. In other words, his divine elixir had been eaten away. He no longer had any divine power, and his cultivation had been crippled. Even his soul was filled with fear. His divine elixir had been eaten away, but he could find heavenly materials and earthly treasures to repair it. Without divine energy, he could not even use hand seals. He had become a disabled man and posed no threat to Luli. The only thing he could use was his horns, which was a special skill of his race. When the energy entered the enemy's body, it could damage the enemy's body and disturb the divine energy. But would Luli given the chance? There were so many worms in his body. With a few more attacks from Luli, Guaisha would be eaten up. Therefore, ignoring the pain, Guaisha shouted, "Hellish God, stop. I will give you 1,000,000 divine origin gold. I have 800,000 in my ring." Luli was surprised. He didn't know that Guaisha had so much divine origin gold with him. Was it because the legion was rich, or did he have all the divine origin gold with him? Swish! Luli did not stop there. He kept on attacking. After 3 times, the worm of void had eaten kill of ghost of void into a skeleton. Guaisha was cunning. Luli didn't dare to approach him, nor did he want to talk to him. Killing him was the safest way. Whoosh! Luli flew over and took Gish's interspatial ring, weapons, armor, and a hand seal. He used psychic power to check. What he saw made his pupils contract. There was indeed a large amount of divine origin gold in Gish's interspatial ring. Luli found at least 700,000 to 800,000. Luli touched his mouth and exclaimed to himself that killing and robbing was a good deal. No wonder there were so many bands of bandits. It was easier to make a fortune than building a force and occupying a small island. Robbing others' wealth was much simpler and faster than producing wealth. Of course, being a bandit was risky. One careless move, and one could be killed. Those who walked by the river would get their shoes wet. Luli didn't plan to keep this up. He was just short of divine origin gold. He used psychic power to check. There were too many treasures in Gish's interspatial ring. Materials were piled up like mountains. There were 3 Chaos Heaven armor and 2 weapons. He was dazzled by all kinds of treasures. Buzzing, Luli took out a book and flipped it open. Soon, he became focused. This was the skill that Guaisha mentioned. It was a book on forging artifacts. There's a lot of knowledge about divine glyphs and detailed explanations. Not only was there the method of making seals, but there were also 2 kinds of strange artifacts. There were beasts of primordial chaos coming over, but they were all devoured by the worms of the void. Luli checked for a while. Then, he packed up and dashed toward the sea. Beasts of primordial chaos were not scary. That being said, this was not a good place to study after all. Luli snuck around for over 2 hours and found an island to hide in. He could not wait to take out the book and read it. He learned forging artifacts from Patriarch Gu in the divinity for a period of time. Therefore, he was interested in it. More importantly, the 3 magical tools described in the ancient texts were all very powerful, and each had their own divine abilities. If he could refine them, they would be of great help to him in battle. These 3 types of magic tools were a magic seal, a physical body, and a magic shield. Seals were offensive artifacts. Guaisha did not lie. According to the book, if a seal in the perfect form could be made, it would be powerful enough to kill a heaven god of 3 trials. Shields were offensive artifacts as well, and they could attack souls. They were strange and powerful. Clearly, the shield was a piece of defensive artifact. According to the book, a perfect shield could withstand the strongest strike from a warrior at the peak of the 3rd tribulation. The 3 artifacts were one-time use. For example, once the seal exploded, it would be gone. It was the same for the shield, which could only withstand 1 strike. That being said, if a seal could kill a heaven god of 3 trials, and a shield could withstand an attack from a warrior at the peak of the 3rd tribulation, the artifacts were impressive. If he could make some and carry them with him, they would be powerful weapons to save his life and kill his enemies. It was not difficult to make the 3 artifacts. The key was the divine patterns. Without studying the divine patterns, one could never make the 3 artifacts in one's entire life. Luli was not pressured in this regard because he had Bloodvine. He could leave the divine patterns to the Bloodvine. When the Bloodvine was done, Luli could start collecting materials to make the artifacts. P.S. Today is the last chapter. Let me slack off for a day because today is the old monster's birthday. Chapter 1941. Blood Fairy had been very happy recently. Her innate ability was to break Dharma formations, so she had a special love and obsession for Dharma formations. Divine glyphs were more profound and mysterious than inhibition formations. Luli had given it too many treasures with divine glyphs, which made it overjoyed. It wasn't a human, so it didn't have too many emotions like humans. To it, it was the most wonderful thing to be able to study the divine inscriptions. Luli spent 10 days to memorize all the knowledge about divine glyphs in this ancient book and the hide scroll given by Chun Guangyang. He didn't need to comprehend it. All he needed to do was record every word in the book and transmit it to Blood Fairy. Blood Fairy had a spiritual connection with him. She had a special divine ability that allowed her to obtain knowledge from his soul. She was like a clone of him. At the same time, Luli found some books about sacred glyphs in Killer Gish's interspatial ring. Killer Guisha must have bought many books in this field in order to study this book. Luli recorded them one by one and sent them to Blood Fairy. Blood Fairy was inspired by the knowledge. She told Luli to search for more books in this field and to get more treasures and weapons with divine patterns. It promised Luli that in a few years' time, its attainments in divine glyphs would definitely improve rapidly. In the future, not only could it help Luli decipher divine glyphs, it could even build many powerful dojos of divine glyphs. Luli did not doubt Blood Fairy's abilities at all. He made a mental note to himself that he must get his hands on any books related to this. After all, he did not have to study them himself. If Blood Fairy could comprehend it, it would be the same for him. Luli opened the interspatial rings of the other bandits one by one and began to sort through the spoils. Ordinary bandits did not have much divine origin gold in their rings. They only had less than 100,000 pieces of divine origin gold in their rings. The other 4 had more divine origin gold on them. They had more than 300,000 pieces of divine origin gold in total. Not bad. The Ghost Killing Core is very rich. In total, Luli had gained more than 2 million pieces of divine origin gold after wiping out the Ghost Killer Core. He was quite satisfied with the result. If this went on, he only had to rob another bandit core, and it would be enough for his travel expenses. And we will stop once we have collected enough travel expenses. Luli reminded himself not to be greedy on the thought of Ghost Killer's means. All the leaders of the forces could not be underestimated. One careless move, and he could be killed. In this world, to become a leader, one had to have something unique about them. To be able to become the leader of a bandit army and still be alive meant that one was definitely not an ordinary person. I'll rest for a day and then go rob another bandit corps. Luli sat down with his legs crossed to recharge his strength. He was ready to leave as soon as he finished the last job. While he was hiding on the island, the outside world was in an uproar again. The news that Luli had intercepted the Ghost Killer spread out. There were 2 top-level scouts of the Ghost Killer, and they were of special races. It was because of these 2 scouts that Luli alarmed the Ghost Killer and the others outside the cave. These 2 scouts had an innate magical ability that allowed them to completely hide their auras. The auras they were talking about were not the auras of ordinary warriors, but the auras of living creatures. When they retracted their energy, they didn't seem to be alive. They had become 2 pieces of stone. Luli couldn't sense anything when he used psychic power to check. Why would Luli care when there was no aura of living creatures? After Luli killed the Ghost Killer, the 2 scouts ran away and went to another bandit corps. They spread the news that the Ghost Killer was wiped out by the Hell Killer. Ghost Killer. He was a bandit leader who was as famous as Zhang Tianhao. He was the most cunning and cunning one. He had wiped out many small forces. Many small forces were overjoyed when Luli wiped them out. At the same time, many people were more afraid of the Hell Killer. When the scouts of the Hall of Black Flames heard the news, they hurried to the area at once. 2 days later, the scouts of the Hall of Black Flames arrived at the area and found the bones of many people killed by Luli. When Luli killed the more than 1,000 warriors of the Ghost Killer, he released many golden worms of the void. The worms of the void could only gnaw away the flesh of the warriors, leaving the bones behind. Since Luli was in a hurry to go after the Ghost Killer, he didn't destroy all the bones, which left many traces. Also, the worms of the void were killed and their bodies were left behind. Worms of the void, the Hell Killer, Luli. More than 10 scouts of the Hall of Black Flames came. They checked carefully and confirmed Luli's identity. They had collected detailed information about Luli, and they knew all the skills Luli had. With the remains of the worms of the void, the scouts had no more doubts. They left at once and sent the news back to the Hall of Black Flames. They didn't go after Luli rashly because that would alert the enemy. It had not been easy for Luli to leave the Omen Island. This was a golden opportunity. Luli was a disgrace to the Hall of Black Flames. Even though the master of the Hall of Black Flames didn't kill Yin Hong last time, he did punish him severely. Yin Hong hated Luli to the core. Don't act rashly. Just keep an eye out. We will open the space portal, and we will be here soon. 1 day later, in a secret branch, Yin Hong's news was sent over. The scouts were cheered up. Yin Hong was going to open the space portal, which would shorten their travel time. They would arrive in 10 days or half a month at most. Also, Yin Hong said us. This time, Yin Hong would not be the only one. There might be other patriarchs or even a great patriarch. Yin Hong was a 3-tribulation heaven god. There would be at least 2 of them. Once they locked on a Luli, they would kill him in one move. Luli came out from cultivation. Same as before, he went to some scouts to ask for some information. Those scouts knew the situation around here the best. They knew everything as soon as Luli asked. He didn't expect that the news of him killing the Ghost Killer had spread out. 2 scouts got away. Luli felt he had been careless. That being said, he didn't mind. If he could get hundreds of thousands of divine origin gold from robbing another group of bandits, then he would have enough for his travel expenses, and he could go to the Sea of Storms. He set his sights on a group of bandits that was as famous as the 7 Luminaries Legion and the Ghost Killer Legion. Its name was the Eagle Legion. The number of people in this legion was just over 500, and there were 3 warriors at the peak of the Second Tribulation. The leader, the Eagle Legion, was said to be very fast. He was proficient in assassination skills and unpredictable. Speed? How fast could warriors at the peak of the Second Tribulation be? Could they be faster than him? Assassination skills? Luli's defense was impressive. He had the dark golden worms of the void and the Ghost Killer. He was not afraid. It was said that this legion had robbed many small and medium-sized forces. They must be rich. They are at the Furious Island. This was the only thing that bothered Luli. It was said that the Eagle Legion wanted to negotiate with an alliance and join them to fight for the Furious Island. Therefore, they had been near the Furious Island. But it seemed that the result of the negotiation was not ideal. After all, the 4 alliances were strong and not in need of manpower. Therefore, the Eagle Legion had been hiding there. Who cares? I don't want to go to the Furious Island. Chapter 1942. Luli snuck under the cover of darkness. In 2 nights, he arrived at the Furious Island. He did not go to the Furious Island. Millions of warriors and powerful warriors were gathered there. There must be scouts everywhere. He would be targeted. According to the scouts, the Heaven Eagle army was not at the Furious Island. They were hiding on a small island nearby, waiting for the war to end before going to negotiate with an alliance. Since the Heaven Eagle army was proficient in assassination, everyone in the Heaven Eagle army knew some skills. If the Heaven Eagle army could join an alliance that had the upper hand, the Heaven Eagle army's abilities would be enhanced. It was a pity that the price offered by the 4 alliances was not enough to satisfy the Heaven Eagle army. Therefore, The Heaven Eagle army wanted to wait to stall the four alliances and wait for the right time. When Luli arrived, he rested for 4 hours to restore his abilities to the peak before he went out to gather information. Very quickly, he found a few scouts. After interrogating them one by one, he obtained some inaccurate information. The Heavenly Eagle Legion was skilled in assassination, so their movements were very strange. Normal scouts would not be able to find their stronghold. Luli only got a vague information. It was said that to the north of the Furious Island, scouts of the Heaven Eagle Army were seen. The base of the Heaven Eagle Army might be there. There were tens of thousands of islands near the Furious Island. To the north alone, there were more than 10,000. Almost all the islands were occupied by small and medium-sized forces. If Luli wanted to find the Heaven Eagle Army, he would have to go to the islands one by one. Luli didn't want to rob the small forces. He could not get some divine origin gold, and he would be exposed. Luli had to sneak to the north patiently. He threw the scouts into the wicked bead. Though he didn't want to kill them, he could not let them go or his whereabouts would be exposed. There were forces, big and small, stationed on the islands. Luli snuck under the sea in a low profile and found scouts everywhere. Fortunately, he had the trace of Tao, which gave him keen senses. He could avoid the scouts easily and sneak along. In 4 to 6 hours, Luli arrived at the north of the Furious Island. He didn't go to the surface. Instead, he began to catch scouts. Scouts were weak. Luli would usually rush over, grab them by the neck, and force them into the wicked bead. He caught some scouts and interrogated them. Still, he could not tell where the base of the Heaven Eagle Army was. He was sure that it must be at the north of the Furious Island. Luli chose the stupidest method, drawing a map. He asked the scouts to draw out all the islands in the north and mark them one by one. Which faction was stationed on this island? That island was occupied by some family. He was prepared to carry out a thorough search. Otherwise, if he searched through tens of thousands of islands, the Heavenly Eagle Legion would most likely find out before he could even find them. They would have long since fled or dug a trap to kill him. Luli wandered around. He captured over 30 scouts and put them into the wicked bead. He asked each scout to draw a map and mark the known islands occupied by which faction. If anyone dared to draw anything, they would be killed without mercy. Scouts were sensitive to intelligence. When Luli caught them, they knew it was the hellish killer. When Luli asked about the Heavenly Eagle Legion, they were relieved. Now that Luli was targeting the Heavenly Eagle Legion, they had nothing to do with it. The group of scouts drew for more than 4 hours and drew out all the information they knew. These scouts were all afraid of death. All the islands were more or less the same, and the islands were all occupied by the same faction. It took Luli more than 14 hours to draw a map himself. He had excluded many islands. Then, he began the second round of comparison and elimination. After another day, Luli had eliminated nearly 10,000 islands, leaving only over 1,000 islands to be eliminated. Luli was still not satisfied, even though he had narrowed down his target. He went out again. This time, he spent 4 to 6 hours and captured dozens of scouts. He asked them to draw more maps, and he would eliminate more islands after he got a new one. 2 days later, Luli narrowed his target to over 100 islands. He did not know which force occupied those islands. Some of the islands had rune dojos, but no scouts dared to go in. Some of the islands were guarded by powerful warriors. As soon as the scouts approached, they would be noticed. There were also some islands with formations of confusion. The scouts could not get close. Let's find them. It was easier to search for over 100 islands. 10,000 islands would not be enough. Luli began to search one by one according to the map. There were 4 islands nearby. Luli started from these 4 islands. He went to the bottom of the sea. Using the trace of Tao, he could avoid the scouts. When he got close to the islands, he didn't go up. Instead, he circled around the islands. Usually, there would be scouts lurking under the islands. He could capture one of them, and he would know who was living on the island. No. The first island was where a middle-level force was stationed. The second island was where a reclusive family was stationed. The third island was where several powerful independent cultivators were stationed. Luli was efficient. He felt lucky that he didn't act rashly. Otherwise, if he had angered some reclusive families or independent cultivators, he would have been in big trouble. It seemed that the fight for the Furious Flames Island was not simple. The four alliances were fighting with their lives on the inside, but there were many forces, independent cultivators, and reclusive families lurking behind. Nobody could tell who would win the Furious Flames Island in the end. Luli was even more careful as he went on. On the third day, Luli had checked more than 80 islands. Today, he finally found the Heavenly Eagle Legion. He caught a scout under a medium-sized island. He interrogated him and found out that the Heavenly Eagle Legion was stationed on the island. But according to the scout, there were some dojos on the island, and there were 8 hidden sentries. It would be difficult for Lu Li to sneak in quietly. The scout did confirm one thing. The Heavenly Eagle Legion was wealthy. They killed many small and medium-sized forces not long ago. The Heavenly Eagle Legion had a conservative estimate of 1 million divine source gold bars. There are dojos on the island? Lu Li was in a dilemma. Dojos on the island were strange. He could be killed if he was not careful. Blood Fairy was not good at runes yet. Otherwise, Lu Li would not have hesitated. The dojos were set up by the second leader. The scouts did not understand. They were just following the route told by the second leader to avoid triggering the dojos. Therefore, the scouts did not know the specific functions of the dojos. Let's do it. After the time for 1 incense stick to burn, Lu Li decided to make a move. He had spent a long time to find the Heavenly Eagle Legion. He would not give up on the next target. The Heavenly Eagle Legion was wealthy. Lu Li could leave after this. This place was too chaotic. Lu Li didn't want to stay here any longer. He had better go to the Sea of Storms as soon as possible. Lu Li sneaked up from the bottom of the sea. He had been using the trace of Great Tao. Before he set foot on the island, he had already found 3 scouts. He killed them easily. Chapter 1943. Sneaking to the island, Lu Li followed the path pointed out by the scout. Along the way, he had killed 11 scouts with the help of the dark golden worms of the void. The Heavenly Eagle Legion was indeed a very strict army. They were well trained, and their scouts were very well hidden. If it were not for the fact that Lu Li had the mark of Tao, he would not have noticed the scouts. Without the dark golden worms of the void, he would not have been able to kill them instantly. Lu Li moved on for more than 15 miles. He was now in the middle of the island. He was more careful because there was a dojo up ahead. Another 3 miles later, Lu Li saw a forest. He sensed the presence of divine glyphs. Needless to say, there was a dojo up ahead. Blood Fairy. Lu Li did not dare to act rashly. He said to Blood Fairy, "There's a dojo up ahead. Go and have a look. Don't move." Blood Fairy pierced in the ground from under Lu Li's body and sneaked into the forest. After a moment, she replied, "There is a dojo, but it is not strong. It is a trapping formation. Master, do you want to crack it?" Trapping formation? Lu Li thought about it. He asked, "Are you sure you can crack it?" "Yes." Blood Fairy's answer cheered Lu Li up. He decided not to tell Blood Fairy to crack the formation. Instead, he walked forward. At the edge of the forest, Lu Li noticed that many trees in the forest had divine glyphs. The divine glyphs formed a dojo that could generate strange moves and skills. Lu Li walked in after a while. At first, nothing happened. Hundreds of feet later, all the divine glyphs glowed. Then, a surge of strange force spread out. Lu Li felt he was suppressed and could not move. Buzzing, Lu Li changed his mask. He looked like an average young man. He pretended to be panicking and waited quietly. At the same time, he began to release worms of the void secretly. Many worms of the void were hiding underground. The worms of the void did not have strong energy. Without careful observation, one could not notice them. Whoosh, 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 from all directions came many noises. Lu Li could sense at least more than 100 people were coming his way. 2 of the auras were very powerful. Someone snorted. "Reckless. How dare you sneak in? You're just a heaven god? Are the people in the scout hall useless?" Groups of people walked over from all directions, but they all stood on the outskirts of the forest. They all wore black battle armor, and many of them looked surprised. Lu Li didn't let his mask turn into a ghost, and he seemed to be in a panic. Therefore, many people thought he was just a scout. Furthermore, they had several layers of scouts and sentries on the periphery. How could this person infiltrate here so easily? They couldn't help but feel bewildered. Only a portion of them have come. The leader of the Heavenly Eagle Legion shouldn't be here. Luli said to himself that it was a pity. He didn't hesitate to expose himself to lure the snake out of its hole, but he didn't expect that he couldn't lure their leader out. He waited for a moment to make sure no one was coming. Then he ordered Blood Fairy, break the formation. Buzz, the divine patterns on the tree began to wander. The force field over Luli disappeared. Luli pretended to be happy and ran towards one direction like a beast. A tall, black-haired man revealed a bewildered expression as he shouted, "Take him down." Whoosh, 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 dozens of people immediately swarmed over. These people's footsteps were very strange and erratic, like shadows walking in the dark. They had daggers, spears, and arrows in their hands. All of them were weapons suitable for assassins. They were fast. Soon, they caught up with Luli, who had slowed down on purpose. They didn't use any strange skills. Instead, their weapons glowed as they stabbed at Luli, buzzing. Suddenly, from underground came out rays of golden light. Following that, many golden worms of the void swarmed out and enveloped dozens of warriors. Out of instinct, many people stepped back at once. However, it was too late. Tens of thousands of worms of the void swarmed into their bodies. The dozens of assassins were not at a high realm, and their physical defense was weak. They all fell to the ground and rolled around. Some of them had half of their bodies bitten off. What is going on? Those worms are horrifying. The warriors in the distance were taken aback. The two warriors at the peak of the second tribulation stared at Luli. They looked at each other and then moved. They approached Luli like two bolts of lightning. Luli didn't run away. It was pointless to keep up the act. It was good enough that he could trap and kill dozens of warriors. Now that two powerful warriors were involved, Luli must go all out. Swish, he took out his 7-star saber and hacked at one of them. A ray of sword light came out, shattering the woods around him. The ray of sword light landed on one warrior and smashed him away. At the same time, the dark golden worms Luli hid underground moved. Hundreds of them swarmed into the warrior's body. The other warrior at the peak of the second tribulation was dashing toward Luli. However, he came to his senses and shouted, "You are the Hell Killer? If you are right, you will be rewarded." Luli's face glowed as he turned into a ghost mask. He swung his saber backward and hacked at the warrior. That person originally wanted to run, but he was suppressed. Countless dark golden void worms surged over, entering his body. Boom! His body was blasted away and his soul was frozen. The dark golden worms were gnawing at him. His internal organs were gone. The warrior rolled around on the ground in pain. He couldn't run away even if he wanted to. If the worms were not stopped, his body would be eaten up soon. The Hell Killer. He is the Hell Killer? Run, run. Go and report to the chief. The warriors nearby were frightened. Luli was so famous. He had wiped out 2 bandit legions twice. How could they fight back? Whoosh! How fast was Luli? He dashed on like a gust of wind. He didn't attack. He just released the worms when he caught up with them. Those average warriors couldn't even stop the golden worms, let alone run away. Brother, what is going on? A shout came from the distance. A warrior at the peak of the second tribulation who was rolling on the ground shouted, "Brother, run. It is the Hell Killer." Brother? Li's eyes glowed. He was looking for the Heaven Eagle. No one here could escape. They would be eaten by the worms of the void. Luli rushed toward the source of the voice. He sped up to the maximum. In an instant, he covered 300 miles and found the leader of the Heaven Eagle Legion, Heaven Eagle. There was no other way. Heaven Eagle was coming with a group of warriors. His chi and energy were so strong that it was hard not to be noticed. The Hell Killer? The Heaven Eagle was not tall, and he looked average. He would not stand out in crowd. That being said, his chi and energy were strong, even stronger than the Slayer. In his eyes was a glint of coldness. He stared at Luli and said, "We have no quarrel. Why are you attacking the Heaven Eagle Legion? Why didn't you say you had no quarrel when you intercepted those small forces? Chapter 1944. 2,000,000. Eagle of Heaven sneered. They had worked so hard to rob hundreds of small forces, and they might not even have 2,000,000. Luli wanted 2,000,000 right off the bat. Did he really think he was invincible? Eagle of Heaven did not like to waste time. He waved his hand and said, "Kill him." Whoosh! The 200 to 300 warriors with him spread out at once and dashed toward Luli in a ghostly manner. The way they moved was elusive. They were clearly coming this way, but they would appear on the other side as if they were ghosts. Shoot! Before they could get close to Luli, many had taken out their sleeves. The sleeves were covered in divine patterns and glowed in green. Clearly, they were poisonous. Everyone didn't just shoot one sleeve dart, but dozens. In an instant, it felt like the sky was filled with sleeve dart. More importantly, the sleeves were covered in divine patterns. Therefore, it was as if the sleeves were alive. They were wriggling in the air like vipers, trying to bite Luli into a pile of bones. Whoosh! Luli stepped up. Space twisted and time sped up. He dashed up, and all the sleeves missed their target. Shoot! One of them roared and shot his sleeve arrows into the sky. The sky was filled with small green arrows. But Luli was too fast. The unfettered steps was the skill that made the master of the palace of universal beings famous. It was well known at the second heaven, not to mention that Azura had perfected the unfettered steps after being locked up for hundreds of thousands of years. Luli vanished into the distance. While the others were at a loss of what to do, Luli came back. Swish! This time, Luli did not give them the chance to make the first move. He used his ghastly strike from the distance. The ray of sword light made 3 turns in the air. The mighty power in heaven and earth came down. The warriors were slowed down. Boom! The ray of sword light smashed away 3 or 4 of them. All of them were smashed into pieces. Luli came over, but he did not stop. Instead, he released hundreds of thousands of golden worms of the void and hundreds of dark golden worms of the void. Those assassins were insidious and cruel. Luli was fast and had the worms of the void. He did not need to engage in close combat with them. Once the worms of the void entered his body, those warriors would die. Luli, fight me face to face if you have the guts. Sky Eagle roared. He saw many insects rushing into his subordinates' bodies. Many of them immediately fell to the ground and screamed miserably. He leaped up and dodged the dark golden worms of the void easily. He kept yelling at Luli, trying to provoke him into a face-to-face fight. Rip! A ray of sword light came. This time, it was aimed at the Sky Eagle. What surprised Luli was that the Sky Eagle twisted its body and disappeared on the spot. It forced itself into the void. Only when the ray of sword light passed did the Sky Eagle come out from the void. Luli dashed over, leaving behind hundreds of thousands of golden worms and hundreds of dark golden worms. Before he left, he used Ghostly Slash to kill several enemies. Guerrilla tactics. Luli had found a new tactic. He was so fast that he didn't know how to use it before. This time, he came to his senses and began to explore this special battle strategy. At the same time, he was exploring the roaming steppes. He was only using the speed of the roaming steppes. He was not familiar with the agility of the roaming steppes. Time and time again, Luli would release some worms and kill 1 or 2 people every time. Sky Eagle tried to attack him several times. But Luli had the trace of Tao, and his senses were incredible. He could use the roaming steppes to get around Sky Eagle and kill his subordinates first. The trace of Tao and the roaming steppes are the perfect combination, Luli exclaimed to himself. The speed of the roaming steppes and the strong senses of the trace of Tao made him feel like a fish in water. Sky Eagle was proficient in all kinds of assassination skills. However, there was no place for him to use his skills. Luli could sense Sky Eagle's presence and dodge in advance, so that Sky Eagle had no chance to make a move. One by one, Sky Eagle's subordinates died. Soon, more than half of them died. Sky Eagle's eyes were bloodshot. He had tried to kill Lu Li many times, but he could not even touch Lu Li's sleeve. Sky Eagle had many ways to kill Lu Li. The problem was that he had to get close to Lu Li. There was only one way that he could attack from a distance. Sky Eagle had done this many times. Unfortunately, Lu Li was as slippery as a loach. Go, I must go, or I will die here as well, Sky Eagle thought. When Lu Li flew away again, Sky Eagle snuck into the void and covered dozens of miles in one go. He was out of the island. You want to run? A cold voice came. Sky Eagle turned around and saw that Lu Li had caught up with him. A red glow rose in Sky Eagle's eyes, but he did not attack. Instead, flames rose up around him, and he dashed into the distance in a blur. Burning his essence blood? Lu Li sneered. Sky Eagle was willing to burn his essence blood to increase his speed. Even so, Sky Eagle could not be as fast as Lu Li. Lu Li stomped in the void. Space twisted and time sped up. Lu Li caught up with Sky Eagle. Swish! Lu Li wielded his 7-star saber and released the ghost cut. Sky Eagle was the leader of the Sky Eagle Legion. Most of the divine, origin gold, and treasures should be with him. How could Lu Li let Sky Eagle run away? Sky Eagle's speed was horrifying after burning his essence blood. However, when the ray of sword light came, Sky Eagle was slowed down. In the end, he was smashed away. The sword intent of ice began to attack. The moment Sky Eagle's soul was frozen, thousands of sword intent began to strike at his soul. Sky Eagle's soul was not strong. When he came back to his senses, the ray of sword light came again. Luckily, Sky Eagle was wearing the primordial spirit armor, which was quite strong. Therefore, he was only smashed away and suffered some minor injuries. Whoosh, 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 they had flown for thousands of miles away from the island. Their attacks had attracted many scouts nearby. Many scouts were alarmed and came over. Turning ray of sword light? Is that the Hell Killer? That is the Hell Killer. He is at the first tribulation, and he is fast. He is wearing a ghost mask. He must be the Hell Killer. Who is he going after? I think it is Sky Eagle, the leader of the Sky Eagle Legion. I think so. Hiss, hiss. The Hell Killer is so powerful. He is going after Sky Eagle. Sky Eagle is famous for his assassination skills. Go back and report. Lu Li's unique move was recognized immediately. Sky Eagle was a famous warrior as well. The fact that he was recognized by the scouts caused a sensation. Hell Killer, you want to kill me? Not so easy. Sky Eagle suddenly bellowed. The interspatial ring on his hand glowed as he took out a red fruit. He swallowed it, and his chi and energy grew 10 times stronger. That being said, he did not attack Lu Li. Instead, he flew toward the south in a blur. He was as fast as Lu Li. What kind of fruit is that? Lu Li was surprised. The leaders of roving bandits were not to be underestimated. They all had life-saving skills. Lu Li snorted. He sped up to the top of his speed and went after Sky Eagle. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.